question and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're here with our very special guest, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh for Ask Dr. Doreen. We're so thrilled to be here with you and live this wonderful Wednesday morning on the 3rd of January, 2021. Can you believe that we're already in February? It's crazy. But thrilled that we are here with you, and Dr. Granpeesheh is here and she's ready to start answering questions for you guys. Let's really quickly go through some of the places that you might be watching us. Right now, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitter, as well as a bunch of other sites we are live on now that we've just joined a bunch more places. So very excited to be live in more places. And we want to encourage you, wherever you're watching us live, you are connected so that if you write in the chat from that platform, it comes right through to us so that Dr. Granpeesheh and I can see your questions. We're going to try to answer as many questions as we can. Please be patient. We don't ever, good morning, Mama. We don't, and I'm going to get to your question in just a second, but we are not going to be able to get to all the questions, but we're going to do our level best to get to as many as we possibly can. Good morning, Bonnie. And if you're watching us later in the day or later in the week or the year or the decade, whatever, the century, you might be watching us on any of the places that you get your podcasts. We're on all of them. If you find that is not true, please alert us, because we believe that we are now on all platforms where you can get your podcast and download us for free. And I'm very excited that we're still able to bring that to you, free download of all of our podcasts. Please visit our website, autism-live.com, to when you're watching in podcast, you can leave chats in there for us. In fact, the starter questions that we have are things that were left in the chat on our website, and we appreciate you writing in there. But also when you're there, take a look at all the different videos that you can find. You can search topics, you can search all of the Ask Dr. Doreens. We've been doing this show now. This is our 10th year, which is like crazy, right? So super exciting to bring you that level of library. Dr. Granpeesheh, welcome. I've overtalked you, but welcome. And we're so thrilled to be here with you this morning.
Thank you, Shannon. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to be back. We were not able to do a few shows over the last few months, but it's really lovely to be back and seeing all the questions popping up. And thanks so much, everyone.
Yes, I really love it. We're saying good morning to Just May, and we're saying good morning to Christina. And Mama, I am going to get to your question in just a second. I want to, though, you alerted me to something, Dr. Granpeesheh, the other day, that the Peers group is getting ready to start some new classes online that are going to be open to people around the world. We want to get the word out and tell people that if you are interested in having your child do the Peers program, which we absolutely love, and it's a great program. It teaches social skills. They're starting a new program. So later on the show, I'm going to give you where you need to go for that. Make sure that you stay tuned for that. Okay, so I want to jump in really quickly, Dr. Granpeesheh, with a question that was sent to us during the week. Abigail wants to know, hi, my son just turned 3 years old. He has Denver, which I believe is the Denver Early Start model, but only 12 hours a week. And we can tell it's not enough. If we start now with 30 hours a week, now that he's 3, will he still have a chance to get, and their phrase is to get out of the spectrum? Do you want to talk about 12
Yeah.
hours versus 30 hours.
Yes, and I also want to talk about the Denver model a little bit. So I just want the person who wrote in and all of our viewers to understand that the Denver model is not the pure ABA model. The Denver model was developed in the last, I'd say, decade, and it was later kind of stated that it is one of the ABA models. I'm not sure that I would agree with that. There are aspects to the Denver model that are behavioral in nature, but I don't know that it meets all the criteria to be defined as ABA. And so it's kind of important. The reason that's important is that if you're doing the Denver model and it's working for your child, wonderful. But I don't want you to think that you are doing a pure ABA program. It's very different. And all the studies you have to realize, because this parent wrote and said, you know, if I increase my hours, will it get my child out of the diagnosis? And you have to realize that all the studies that showed recovery from the diagnosis or losing symptoms of the diagnosis had to do with pure ABA models, and they were done all the way back to the 80s, right? So 87 was the first study. And then after that, there were replications that occurred in the 90s and all the way through, I think our replication or recovery study was in the late 90s. And I'm not sure if the Denver model has any kind of study published that shows actual recovery. In other words, that the intensity and their model was focused on enough symptoms that it resulted in the individual losing their diagnosis. I don't think that happened. I know that the Denver model does have a lot of research behind it to show that it is effective, but I don't know if it ever resulted in recovery. So that's something important for you as a parent to decide. Now, if you were doing a pure kind of more ABA focused model, that means if it was something like discrete trial merged with natural environment training, that type of model, I would say yes, increasing hours definitely makes a huge difference. In fact, hours are the number one, they're kind of like the prescription, the dosage has to do with hours, and it is a huge difference. I mean, there are a lot of factors that make a difference, but hours are definitely the number one factor.
Okay. So I hope that for that parent, you know, that you will take that and write us another question. I want to get to the question that I said we would get to that Mama wrote in, wanting to know how to deal with depression. My son, autistic, 10 years old, is most of the time depressed. How can I deal with this?
Yeah. So, you know, when I first read the question, how to deal with depression, I thought you might be referring to yourself as a parent, because a lot of our parents go through that. And that is honestly harder to deal with than if you are dealing with a 10-year-old. And the reason is that, so I was happy when I saw the second question, which is like, you're asking about your son. So when it comes to children, unfortunately, their lives are a little bit less burdened, I guess, than ours. And they have fewer responsibilities, and the whole process is just simpler when it's a 10-year-old. So what you have to do is, and this is a good exercise for anyone, not just an individual who thinks their child is depressed, but anyone should, everyone, every parent should do this, because it's very helpful to have an idea of what are the things that are rewarding and or not rewarding in our children's lives, right? So you start with just kind of identifying what are the things that your child enjoys. right? So, and we call those obviously reinforcers. There's, we could send you, or you could look online, and there's reinforcement inventories online. And these are important because there's things on there that you wouldn't even think of, right? So you might think, for instance, that only food or only praise or that sort of stuff, but there's a million things that are rewarding to our children. And it's important to think about those things. For example, just being left alone is rewarding, or just being given an opportunity to have a quiet time, or those types of things. So you establish a list of what are the things that are rewarding, and then you establish a list of things that are difficult. So what are the things that are too demanding or cause a lot of like stress for my child, or it's difficult for my child to do these things, or they make my child not feel good about himself, right? So maybe they could be things like I don't know, his language lessons, his math homework, just spending time with other people because it's so loud, spending time with children because they might not understand him and he might feel left out. So all the things that are negative, right? And then do a schedule of his week and figure out when are the things that are happening, like what's going on in his life, write his entire schedule, and which one, and then like put a plus or a minus next to the activities, right? So like, he wakes up, that's okay. That's not too negative an experience for him because he has breakfast, right? And that's maybe a reward. So that's a plus. But then right after that, he has to do homework, and maybe that's a minus, or he has to go to school, or whatever it is, depending on where you are in the world. So try to identify the things that are not pleasant and the things that are pleasant. And so the days, and whenever you have an activity that is demanding or makes him feel not so good about himself, stressful, confusing, hard, embarrassing, whatever it is that's negative, follow it with one of those rewards that you listed the other day on the other list, right? So you have these, so he has a very demanding math program or whatever. So I want to make sure that on the days that he has math, right after that, he gets 20 minutes, 30 minutes of one of these things that was rewarding to him, like playing on the computer or running outside or whatever it is. So what you're doing is you're reorganizing his daily schedule in a way that it becomes fair. And I always say that because a lot of times as parents or as teachers, we're very focused on, I have a limited time, I got to teach this thing, I got to make him change in that way, I have to, he needs to be toilet trained, he needs to be talking, he needs to be socializing, he needs all this stuff, right? And we don't realize that it all adds up and it becomes overwhelming for the child. And so it's really, really important to put it down on paper and from his perspective, determine which is rewarding and which is demanding or difficult, and then balance the day and balance the week and make sure that there's a lot of reward. Now, once you've balanced it, go back and add 10% more reinforcers. Like increase the reward, make it so that your child is enjoying every moment, because I promise you, they will learn a lot more when they're happy, when they're have something to work towards. Now, a lot of our kids will also need, everything I said is simpler said than done, I guess. So a lot of our kids will need visual reminders of these things, that if you work hard for the next 30 minutes, here's a timer, we're going to get this reward, here's a picture of it. Somehow visually, so that they know what they're working towards. Because remember, our kids don't necessarily have the same intrinsic self-rewarding system that other kids do, right? They don't work in order to make you proud because making you proud is their number one reward. That isn't necessarily the case with a lot of our kids. It is with some of our kids, but other kids need other types of rewards. So I think that's the best way to get your child out of depression, is to kind of make their life a little bit more rewarding in whatever way you can. In fact, that holds true for all of us, right? But we just get very confused when we're talking about ourselves. It's hard to balance our own lives, and we have so many responsibilities and burdens, I guess, that it's hard to also add in rewards.
And I think COVID has just made it harder, because a
Oh,
lot of the things that we could default to reward ourselves and to reward our kids aren't available right now. So I think that that's made it harder. But it's also, I don't know about everybody else, but it's made me more mindful about it. That,
yeah,
oh my gosh, like what else can we do? And we almost, we have to schedule it.
yeah.
We have to schedule that. Otherwise, it's hard for all.
Now, I do also, Shannon, want to point out, I'm a big believer, when you study all the literature on things like depression and anxiety, you learn that there are always two ways to handle these types of issues. One is through biological means, and one is through behavioral means, or cognitive behavioral means. And the studies all indicate that the most successful group are the people who do both. So you can be someone who is doing all of these behavioral things that I mentioned, and your child continues to feel depressed. It's time for you to consult with a psychiatrist, or even just his developmental pediatrician or someone, because there's a whole nother side to this, which is the biology of depression and anxiety. And chemically, we become imbalanced simply because our environment is not providing to us the nutrients we need for our neurotransmitters to function correctly. And it's the truth is, in the old days, like when there was enough bacteria in our environment, we all had very healthy guts, and our neurotransmitter levels were functioning great, and we had enough serotonin, enough dopamine, enough norepinephrine that we would never get depressed or anxious, or fewer people did. And so that has changed. And we currently have a lot of people, and as Shannon said, COVID was not an easy period. A lot of people are going through depression. And aside from all these behavioral or cognitive behavioral methodologies, I am a very strong supporter of medications that help with depression and anxiety. There are many medications. The primary group, obviously, is the serotonin or norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, so SSRIs or SNRIs, and they are very, very helpful. And they're not, this is not something scary, folks, honestly, because all these medications do is they allow your body to absorb your own neurotransmitters a little bit better. So, those medications also help just kind of lighten the load when it comes to what we're all going through in life right now.
Have you ever seen, there's a video that they've been able to, with an incredible microscope, they've been able to look at, and it looks like this alien life form that's a ball that has legs, and it looks like it's dragging something. And what it actually is that process that you were just describing, and it's literally your body dragging something. And they say, this is what happiness looks like, is when your body is able to transmit this particular, whatever that thing is transmitting, that is what creates happiness. It's this crazy video. I could watch it forever, but to look at it and go, oh, that's what happiness actually looks like. Incredible. The question that came in, and I don't know, you may have already answered it, but Christina B wants to know is, will the answer that you're giving to Mama for depression, does that also work for anxiety? And you said that you included anxiety. So is that sort of a carte blanche?
Yeah, so in terms of medication, the medication for anxiety and depression is the same thing. It's exactly we use antidepressants for anxiety. So they're the exact same medication. But In terms of behavioral techniques, there are other things you can do behaviorally for anxiety. Obviously, when our environment is a little bit more rewarding, we tend to have less anxiety. But anxiety is a little bit different. It has more to do with apprehension. It has to do with, fear. Whereas depression has to do more with hopelessness. And so fear there are antecedent modifications, I guess, that you could put in place that would assist the individual with their fear. And those are things like, repetition, practice, getting the individual, we always talk about our kids have a hard time with transitions, right? So as you know, Shannon, there are lots and lots of ways that we help our children transition from one situation to another. Why do we do that? Because we don't want them to have anxiety. We don't want to flood them with something that is fearful to them or overwhelming to them. And so with anxiety, it's a lot about that. It's a lot about, again, you can go through the child's in particular kind of daily schedule, and see and identify, if you can identify the situations that cause fear in the child, that cause sort of I will not succeed at this, and practice those situations ahead of time. This is why a lot of times parents will ask me, well, why shouldn't I put my child in school? It'll help him with social skills. And I tell them it will help them if they've already learned all the skills necessary, so that when they're put in that situation, it doesn't become an anxiety provoking and failing type of situation. So with anxiety, I think a lot of it has to do with rehearsal, practice, just being able to identify that you will be good enough at this activity. And then there are also kind of exercises that we do when our kids are going through anxiety, when they're just we help them identify their own physical responses to anxiety, like heartbeats, or I'm starting to feel my own heartbeat, I'm starting to get nervous. And then we teach them exercises to help control that, like breathing and counting, like going to a peaceful place and playing music, like doing some other activity that is much more comforting. So there's just a little bit of different techniques to deal with anxiety.
There we go. Buying wants to know, my 7-year-old son clenches his jaw like an underbite. He does this like it is him stimming. I keep telling him to close his mouth correctly, and he does it, but how to make him aware, because his lips are getting dry, and I imagine that this can cause pain in his jaw.
Yeah. So it's going to be a little bit difficult, and I don't want to ignore that there might be some other type of biological, physical issue there. So I would actually try to meet with his doctor, his pediatrician, first of all, and make sure that there's nothing else going on there. Sometimes our kids have slight tics that involve like pressing their jaw. Sometimes this nerve, which is called the trigeminal nerve, when they have too much stress or anxiety, as we were talking about, they will clench this because the pressure here makes them, it just becomes a habit of pressing this and making sure that it's tensed. So those are things that you should really identify if there's something else going on, and talk to the pediatrician and make sure that if there's a medication or something that you need there to help with that, you've taken care of that. That aside, behaviorally, we would probably, as always, identify the function. It's very possible that the function is automatic in this case, but you should identify the function. So in other words, when does it happen? What are the antecedents to it happening? Does it happen like when you ask him a question and he doesn't want to respond to it? So that would be sort of an escape maintained behavior. Does it happen just when he's on his own, which is like a tic, which is much more automatic in nature? Identify the function. When you identify the function, it always helps you figure out what to do next. If it is an automatic function, and it is a stimulation that he's feeling in his jaw that he enjoys, you're going to have to replace that. And what can you replace it with? I can tell you that we have done studies that where we've replaced this type of behavior with gum chewing. So what you do is you essentially would give the child, you teach him how to chew gum. And because during that time, he's moving his jaw and putting enough pressure on his jaw that if he doesn't have gum, the duration of time when he has the gum, he's doing it, that's fine, and it's appropriate because he's chewing gum. But when he spits out the gum, then you don't allow it to happen. So you essentially correlate the two activities. So when he's chewing, he's able to do it. When he's not, he's calm. And those are some, and by the way, if you look online, if you do identify that it's kind of more a tick and you know, he's aware of it, but it's very hard for him to control it, then there's a lot of different types of exercises for individuals who want to get control over these kind of muscular tics, and they can, and just focusing on it for durations of time. So you will, for instance, tell him we're going to count to 5 and you can't do it. So we'll count to 5 and that'll be his baseline. And then next time you will have him keep his jaw calm up to 6, up to 10, up to 20. And then you set a timer and you gradually start to increase that. And when he feels that he can no longer keep his jaw calm is when he asks for gum. And now he gets a typical way of being able to exercise his jaw. Hopefully that makes sense. You're on mute.
I said thank you. I said very, very cool. Christina would like to know, how can I deal with when my son is in his head to bring him back to interact with us? Telehealth is difficult sometimes regaining his attention. Any suggestions?
Yeah, it's very hard. You're right. Those are the types of things that make it harder with telehealth. Absolutely. You know, everything we do increases with reinforcer, right? So what I would do is I would just start with a very basic exercise of when I call your name, you need to stop what you're doing, look at me and attend, you know, answer my question or do whatever I'm asking, and I will now reward you. And that is your goal. So make sure that you start with a very, very basic request, which is, I'm going to call your name. So, you know, Shannon, and all I want from Shannon is to look at me. And I'm going to reward that with a highly rewarding stimulus. Maybe I will give Shannon a M&M or a cookie or something that she wants just for stopping what she's doing and looking at me. Then a week from now, I will add to that. And I will basically, sorry, I got distracted with the background noise. But, and then I will basically start to increase what I require. So I will now ask Shannon to stop, look at me, and also say, yes, mom, or whatever it is. And then I will give the reward. And so you bring it back down to the basic core of what you want, and then you gradually work your way back to the natural environment, which is, you know, ultimately your goal is that when you ask your child to respond, they stop whatever they're doing and they look at you and they respond, and then they go back to what they were doing. But what you need to do is start with the very core, easy kind of antecedent behavior consequence model, reward that, and then grow it back again.
Wonderful. And that is the key to everything, that reward, right? I love it. So Parker wants to know, what is y'all's thought on, I didn't realize you were Southern, Parker, but he wrote out y'all's. What is y'all's thoughts on the COVID vaccine? There's a lot of hesitancy, including from my own parents, some due to the Wakefield paper, some due to other things. Do you all recommend it?
Well, it is definitely too soon, Parker. So the COVID vaccine has absolutely nothing at all to do with prior papers or vaccines. Nothing at all. In fact, this vaccine, we have never built anything that even slightly resembles how this vaccine works. It's the very first time that we've ever produced an mRNA vaccine. And this is kind of important because prior vaccines, like you referred to Wakefield, whose paper was on the MMR, and he was very particularly involved with the measles vaccine. But and prior other vaccines like the DTaP or even polio or any of these types of vaccines all have to do with giving the body a very, very small amount of the disease so that the body reacts to it and then builds antibodies towards that disease. So when we're talking about mumps, you are getting a tiny amount of mumps actually when you're given the MMR vaccine, and mumps, measles, and rubella all together, and your body then builds antibodies. You react to it, right? And then your body, because it's such a tiny bit, your body conquers that. That is, historically has been very, very difficult for a lot of people in the world of autism, because there are a lot of individuals, and there's quite a little bit of evidence actually, that the vaccines did cause injury to some individuals, right? If that didn't exist, we wouldn't have all of these families who are getting actually money for the damage that was made to their children. So I actually believe that there are some children who did get injured with one vaccine or another simply because their immune system was not able to fight the vaccine in a way that it produced antibodies and was therefore successful at fighting. In fact, their immune system was injured by it. So that is the past. This is a different type of vaccine. We know nothing about what this vaccine does. This vaccine is an mRNA vaccine. That means you're not getting a small amount of the COVID virus, of the coronavirus at all. What you're getting is a messenger RNA, which goes into your genetic structure and modifies your genetic structure so that you start producing antibodies. It is not a reaction to an external piece of the virus. It is a message. It's a message to your body saying, can you please produce some antibodies to this particular virus? So we don't know how this vaccine will affect us long term. Anyone, even people with a very, very healthy immune system. We don't know how it will affect us genetically. We know nothing about it. It was just produced, right? So, but please don't let it. It definitely is in a different ball game than the past vaccines. That's important to understand because the way that it works is very different. Will this current way that it works have a positive or negative effect long term? We just don't know. The question to balance it with, I think, for parents is, this is an unknown. We don't know if the vaccine, what it will do in the long term. It's unknown. What we do know is that in the short term, it prevents, at a very high percentage, your likelihood of catching this particular coronavirus, right? So COVID-19, you will at least be safe from that. So what are the harms of COVID-19? And we don't know everything there is to know there either, but we are 1 year ahead at least, right? People started catching this in the beginning of 2020. And 1 year ahead, what the literature shows so far is that different populations will get over it at different lengths. We don't know exactly. We know that the more ill you are when you get it, the higher risk of not overcoming it. One of the things that we don't know is what are the long-term issues if you've overcome COVID? And there's a lot of literature on this developing now. It just hasn't been long enough. But there is a little bit of research showing that there might be some long-term deficits or things that we have to overcome. Mental deficits, like it does impact memory, it does impact some of the kind of the speed of set shifting in your brain, those types of things. But those are things that potentially could also improve with time. We just don't know. So it's this over, it's two unknowns right now. And I think a lot of people are choosing one or the other. It's kind of like, well, I guess I'll risk it. And I'm also willing to stay at home and protect myself as much as I can. I'd prefer to do this. And others are saying, I'm losing my mind. I'm depressed. My family's depressed. I got to get out there. I have a relatively decent immune system. I'm going to go out there and do it because I need to go back to life. And so these are personal choices that everybody has to make. And it's very hard because there's no real literature there enough. It's a very new thing we're dealing with.
Yes, and I'm very fond of reminding everybody that, we should all be educating ourselves, and it's so wonderful to hear an expert like Dr. Granpeesheh talk about it. But at this moment in time, on February 3rd in 2021, there is no vaccine that the FDA has approved for children. So, so we're still in a holding pattern, waiting to hear if now I realize that people are looking at it, the parents, and we have adults both on and off the spectrum who are asking this question. But I like to keep pointing that out. I also want to point out, because so that we don't get mail that even with all the things that you said, I don't want to speak for you, but I certainly don't consider myself anti-vaccine. I think people, when you have questions, people love to go, boom, you're anti-vaccine. And I think that we have to move away from that kind of black and white thinking. I think everyone is entitled to have questions, and it doesn't mean that you are anti-vaccine. Vaccines are very important, and I am thrilled that they're working so hard on the vaccines, and there are a number of vaccines, and they are not all equal and even. They do different things, and our 1-shot, 2-shot, and the AstraZeneca one is vastly different, but we don't have that in the United States yet. It is on the old model. I didn't realize this until the other night. When I was doing research, the AstraZeneca is on the old model of vaccines that you were talking about. But they only have that in Europe right now. It's not approved here in the United States until potentially April. So it's interesting. But just to be clear, we're not anti-vaccine. We're smart people asking smart questions. And I'm only speaking for myself. But anyway, I want to get to our next question here. Actually, I'm so bad. I need to get to this question. I can't believe I didn't get to this before. Hello, ladies. I would like to ask for help with my son, who just a few weeks ago started having intense behaviors, which include doing rituals like tapping on things, going back to step on the floor, running towards the door of the house, running to the kitchen wall. He's also crying out of nowhere, screaming, asking for help, saying things like, "Don't take me," and "I don't want to die." When my husband or myself try to stop him from doing some of the rituals, he becomes aggressive towards us or himself. I'm not sure where all this behavior came from, but it all started around Christmas time. Prior to the behavior starting, he had a dental procedure to remove 2 baby teeth that were not coming out on their own, and adult teeth were already coming in. The experience was traumatic. I lost my place. They had to strap him down because he was trying to hit. He had never had a procedure like that done before. The whole time, from start to finish, he cried, screamed, and asked for help. It was the most traumatizing day, I swear. I feel like all these behaviors started the day after the dentist. He has never had such rigid behaviors before. He seems scared and super anxious. It almost looks like he has panic attacks a few times a day. I asked him the other day, after he had somewhat calmed down, why he was squeezing his head. And he replied that he heard a chin-chin type of sound and that he wanted to touch his brain. He also added that he couldn't put his body back together and that there were a lot of sick people dying. Please help me. This is a really terrible seeing him. He looks like he's so lost and almost like he can't control his body or his brain. Please, I don't know how to help him. and I don't know how much longer I can see him like this. Thank you so much. And she did leave her phone number. So, yeah.
So this is when you first started describing some of the things that he's doing, like running back and forth and so on, I started writing down for myself anxiety behaviors. And this is more than just normal anxiety, this is trauma. So he experienced trauma, as you mentioned, and what he's experiencing now is PTSD, which stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. Very clear. You described PTSD completely. I mean, exactly. And you know, different people have different, I guess, uh, levels that they can tolerate, tolerance levels, right? And someone might go to war in Vietnam and come back and not have PTSD, and someone else might develop PTSD from having a dental procedure, especially when it's a child who doesn't quite understand what is going on, and it's a painful, and maybe they can't express that or whatever it is. It doesn't matter, and please don't blame yourself for that. You did what was right, and you had to get him through this, because we all know that dental pain in the long run is also very, very traumatic. So what you did was fine. Where we are now is PTSD, and we have to deal with it. And with PTSD, the problem is that it is so severe that oftentimes, initially, behavioral stuff doesn't work all that well, because the individual is just traumatized, right? And they're not open to receiving. So it's kind of like if I was to tell you, you know, try to reward him more. It might work and it might not, because at this point he is so traumatized that he's just doing all of these things. And by the way, you know, anxiety behavior or stuff that we do post-trauma is all protective. It's not, it doesn't make any sense. It's not logical, but it's what our body and our brain does in order to protect itself. So like people who have obsessive compulsive disorder, for instance, they wash their hands, as an example, 50 times. It's not logical because you just washed your hands a minute ago, right? But it is the process of what goes on in the brain, the compulsion is calming. And so with your child running back and forth, that compulsion is calming. These types of illogical, repetitive behaviors allow the individual to feel like they have control over the situation, and by doing this thing, they're getting control over it. They're going to be okay. They're going to be safe. And so that's the psychology of it. Just to understand that it's pretty hard for you to see these things, but that's what it is even if he's hurting himself or hitting or scratching or whatever it is, it's I want to get control over whatever this feeling is, and this is one way that I can get control over it. Okay, so what do? We basically go back, and you will start with getting medication. And once you get medication that will help him calm down, and again, we're talking about anxiety medication. And this does take a couple of weeks, but it's relative. You could even get, you know, your pediatrician might actually even be willing to give you, what is it, a panic type medication. So these are medications that are usually not used a lot with children, but in trauma situations they are. And what they do is they give you, it calms you almost within 15 minutes, right? It's not intense, but it calms you in very quickly so that you're not panicking. Now, it might also make the child a little bit tired, let's say. But regardless, once you have calmed the child, then that's where you do a lot of the activities. Like, for instance, you will take a look and see, let me ask you as a parent, can you segment his day and observe when these behaviors are happening more? Are they happening equally across the entire day? in which case we will now need to put in a lot more calming and rewarding activities throughout his day? Or are these behaviors happening at certain times of the day, perhaps when he thinks you're about to take him out? Perhaps it's when he thinks that you are, I don't know, it's the afternoon and he's tired. Maybe he's not sleeping. Like when are these behaviors occurring more? And what you do is you essentially start to completely alter his entire day. So you'll start with we're gonna have Disneyland every day. We're gonna do only things that are super, super, super fun and positive for him. Things that during which he would never hit his head or do any of these other things. We're gonna have fun. So now we're having an absolutely fun day. That's good, but how long can I keep this up? Don't worry about it. You'll keep it up and you'll gradually change it back to normal. But the bottom line is he went through trauma. So right now you have to make everything turn positive again before you can gradually go back to just normal routine. So, behaviorally, that's the way to go. You start with a fully reward enriched schedule, and you gradually reintroduce demands, very gradually, so that he can handle it. That's the behavioral. In terms of the medical, aside from looking at things that would help anxiety, you also want to, by the way, track his sleep, because his sleep might have been altered, and if your sleep is reduced, then you're going to have more anxiety during the day as well. So these are some pointers, but trauma is a very odd thing, and getting over it takes a little bit of time.
And she has written in and said that she spoke with his pediatrician and they said they couldn't prescribe anything for him, and that she did start writing down in a notebook since January 3rd, and the behaviors are happening at different times and places. My question for you, Dr. Granpeesheh, is that I've heard you talk about EFT tapping for anxiety and trauma before, but I don't know I don't know how old this child is, and I don't know if that's something. I've actually looked into having an EFT tapping person come and talk with us on the show about what this would be like for kids on the spectrum, but I don't know at what age, and I don't know if this is a fair question for you, if you know, but at what age can that be effective for a child with trauma?
Yeah, it's hard, Shannon. Tapping exercises are very useful and have been shown, eye movement desensitization has been shown to be very effective for, let's say, war veterans who come back with trauma. But I've done this. I've not only studied it, but I've also done it. And I don't see it working with our kids that much, because it's first of all, you have to memorize a series of locations, and it's very self-induced. It's not something that someone else can do for you, but you need what it involves. It's similar to desensitization that we do for phobias or those types of things. But with systematic desensitization processes, you basically are pairing a phobic type of stimulus or gradual graduations, I guess, to that stimulus. So like a picture of the stimulus and experience, etc., to a calming experience. You pair them. So you're pairing things like relaxation and breathing to stimuli that are progressively more and more scary, okay? And that way you kind of get over the phobic element. With tapping, you're pairing the tapping to the mental activity of the trauma. So it would involve you being able to tell the child, I want you to remember the dental experience and bring it back up while you do tapping. And from what I'm reading, I don't see that that is something that the child would be capable of. Maybe they are, and in which case we would be happy to help you learn more about tapping. I do think that it seems very overwhelming because it's sudden, extreme, and it appears to be all day or at different times of the day. And I would say separate the day so that you are not dealing with 24 hours of just chaos. You're dealing with maybe 5 incidents, and then you're dealing with each one. Okay, so don't let it overwhelm you. Just separate the day, figure out what are the antecedents to each episode, and then we can work with you to try to figure out how do we modify the antecedents and the consequences of each episode so that it won't happen as much, or that so that the child finds ways to calm themselves.
Okay. Hey, we've got some folks who are watching us today on Vaughn Live for the first time, so we want to say hello to them. And one of them has written in and said, I wish I knew how to handle my brother. Even after many years, I still don't know how to deal with his, to prevent his anger bursts. He is now in his 60s and still unpredictable, has a very short fuse.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if the brother has a diagnosis of any kind. I guess it doesn't really matter, to be honest with you, because, you know, the basis of it is behaviors that are rewarded increase and maintain. They continue. And if we want a behavior to stay, we pay attention to it, we give into it, we allow it to be effective. And if we want a behavior to be eliminated, to discontinue, then we have to make sure that it is not getting attention, that it is not getting what the individual wanted by doing the behavior. And that is the most important thing. And when you look at someone who's 60, my initial reaction is to think that by losing his temper, he has managed to get what he wants in the world. So whenever he lost his temper, people gave in and they gave him what he wanted. So from his perspective, he learned this is a very effective mode of communicating with the world. And it's very hard when someone is 60 because not only is this behavior ingrained, but it is also and when a behavior has become a habit like that for so many years, it's harder to change. But it is also very difficult because there's many people interacting with this individual. And even if you were to change and not give in, others might still be afraid and give in. So I think it starts by getting together with all the people who are as frustrated as you are. I guess all the people who are in his life who are experiencing the same level of frustration and saying, hey, this type of tantruming has to end. We can't tolerate this anymore. And then you all kind of get together and you sit down and all say, yes, first of all, we all we want this to change. And then what you do is you do a functional behavior assessment and you say, well, it looks like he tantrums or has these negative behaviors under these conditions. Like whenever we ask him to do something, whenever he doesn't want to do something, whenever he wants access to something, it's always going to be one of those things, right? He wants access to something, he wants to avoid something, he wants attention. So those are very basic things, and you list the function. You list, okay, like it's maybe one of these, or it's all of these, or most of the time it's because he wants to avoid something, let's say. And then what you have to do is everyone has to agree that you're not going to let that communication be effective anymore. So when he tantrums, he will not get to what he wants anymore. It's just that simple. When he tantrums or is aggressive or whatever it is, we're just going to ignore it. He's not going to get his way anymore. Instead, we're going to give him a different out. We're going to say, hey, if you don't want to do this activity, all you have to do is just say, I don't want to really do this right now. vocalize it. Or all you have to, if he's non-vocal, I don't know, then all you have to do is maybe give us a sign and just a symbol that shows that he wants time out, something like that. A more appropriate way of communicating. And that's what it's all about, and that's what ABA is all about, really. But it's not an easy task. And when you're trying to change the behavior of someone older, I would really recommend that you get together with an expert in ABA, which would be a board certified behavior analyst, and you get them to help you identify the function, to help you write out a kind of treatment plan that the entire family can do together.
Okay, I think we have time to squeeze in one last little question. Just May says, is it normal for schools to not want to be on board with your child's ABA program? I thought ABA was generalized. They want to do their own thing, and I want ABA to be a part of his IEP.
Yeah. I don't know what normal is anymore. It's school to school. Some schools are very pro ABA. In fact, they are just like getting better and better. Other schools still don't have any understanding of what ABA even is. Forget about being on board with it. I commend you. I think you are right, and it is your right, and it is your child's right to have access to ABA. And I think that you need to call for an IEP and say, I'm sorry, but ABA is the single intervention that has shown to be hugely effective, which is why it's the single intervention that is funded. And I need you guys to provide it to me. And you know what? I'll tell you the truth. If they don't provide it to you, it's even better, because then you will have the opportunity to have an arrangement where the school has to pay for an ABA expert to provide it to you. Sometimes schools will say, oh, I have an ABA program, and it's not an ABA program at all. So, one step at a time. First, call an IEP and say, I really want ABA in my child's program, and then see what they offer you, and come back and we can talk about it.
And just briefly, I just want you to know that my son was in a school for a while who said, oh, in an IEP, you can't dictate the method. You can only dictate what the goals are. You can't dictate the method to us. And they would say, we don't do ABA. And so what we did was we outfoxed them. And with the help of CARD, with the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, we stopped using the word ABA and stopped asking for ABA, but we started writing ABA into all of his behavior intervention plans. And saying that this is how they had to deal with behavior. So they ended up doing ABA. We just didn't say it was ABA.
Could you ask Bonnie, I wonder if things have changed now, like that, because ABA is kind of, not only approved by the Surgeon General, but publicly funded through insurance. I wonder if you can request it now, because so much time has passed, and we've now concluded that this is the most effective form of
I'll ask Bonnie. We have Bonnie back on Monday, and I'll make that the first question that we will ask her. And everybody's saying thank you so much for all your help. We want to thank Dr. Grampy-Shea for being with us and giving this time. And we just so appreciate your beautiful mind and that you share what you know with us. It's so amazing. And I want to thank all of you for being here and reminding you that if you like, and we have a video that will play now, but like us, share us, tell other people about it. We're so glad that we're on more platforms now. We're back tomorrow with an amazing young mom who is a social worker and who has a very interesting story to tell about what she's been doing in COVID and how it's been changing her life. And I think you're all going to love this tomorrow. Very uplifting story. And then on Friday, Nancy and I are back with licensed marriage and family therapist Vince Redman, who's going to be here. So excited that we're able to provide you guys that programming. We're going to be live the rest of the week. Thank you again, Dr. Grampy-Shea. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live from a different place in my house this week. So thrilled. I know you guys are like, did you move? No, we just have to be in a different place in my house this week. So change of scenery. And it's throwing me off a little bit, but super fun to be here with you. We're live. Today is, I always have to check the date. It is the 4th of February, 2021. Ooh, yeah. And excited that we're here with you. I just got to ask you guys a question as we start. I want to know if you guys are binge watching anything, and when you're binge watching something, does it kind of mess with your head? Because we're watching as a family, I know, judge me, Breaking Bad right now. I'd never seen Breaking Bad, and my son, who's about to be 18, wanted to watch it, and my husband had already seen it, but we're watching that as a family right now. So I'm just like so in the Breaking Bad world. But now on my own, I'm watching Pose, which I missed when it first came out. And I feel like between these two worlds, especially because I'm binging Pose, it's like all I want to do is open a house for transgender young people and be a mother. Not necessarily walk in balls and thing. I'm not doing that. I can't wear high heels, but I want to mother this youth. So my head is so very, if you have not seen Pose, whoo. And something that we should talk about on this show more, we talk a little bit, but the studies are in, and more individuals, because it works both ways. There's a higher percentage of gay and transgender youth that are on if you just take the autism community, there's a higher percentage of gay and transgender individuals in the autism community than there is in the rest of the population. And there is a high number, if you just look at the gay and transgender population, there is a higher percentage of individuals that are on the autism spectrum, which of course makes them more vulnerable. And it just makes my heart want to beat outside my chest. But we're here, and we're talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective, and that is certainly a part of the autism spectrum. So I want to be bringing you guys more shows having to do with that as well. I know somebody asked a question about that yesterday, and we didn't quite get to it. Today we have other things going on, though. It's just that my head is in Pose. So thrilled to be here with you. Want to remind you we are live. Right now, we are live on more platforms than we have ever been before. It's just absolutely amazing what Traven has been able to do to get us on more of these sites. So the big four, though, are YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, and Twitter, but we are on many more sites live right now. I know yesterday we had a lot of folks joining us on Vaughn Live. We're so thrilled to have you here. I want to let you know that we're live for the hour, and then we podcast to every place that you can get your podcasts. So feel free to watch us live or recorded. We're a free download. You don't ever have to pay to watch our show. That's really important to us. We are also on BronxNet TV. So you can catch us on cable access in the Bronx if you'd like. And if you'd like for us to be on your cable access channel in your area, please make us aware of where, what the cable access channel is, and if you know who we might talk to there, connect us. We're very interested in being a resource for people and being in as many places as we can be for free, because our mission here is to provide information and inspiration. That's what we're all about. And we want to provide that for the larger autism community, which starts, of course, with individuals who are on the autism spectrum. And that's huge. I mean, that's important to us, that they are the beating heart of what we do and why we do it. But we include in our audience and tailor our content not only to those individuals, but of course to those individuals, but also to everyone who loves them, that is surrounding them and wanting to stand tall for them, to make sure that they get the resources, support, dignity, employment, right to love, right to wear the clothing that they want to wear, right? All of that. Everyone who is loving someone on the spectrum and wanting that for them, they're a part of our larger autism community. So when we say autism community, we're including all of those individuals as well, because we feel like it's a bigger voice, a bigger army to be able to get the respect and dignity. We're not all going to agree on everything, right? I think that any diverse group of people, we're going to have individual needs, different points of view, but I think we can all agree on the rights, dignity, support, and the ability to choose what those supports are, right? So thrilled to be able to be here. And we feature on the show lots of experts. Oh my goodness, if I got a great expert for you today with a really empowering message. Wonderful, fabulous social worker. That's my dog scratching to go out because I'm in a different area of the house. No, you cannot go out. Come here. Do you want to say hi to people? Stop. I don't usually have her in the big dog in the room when I'm doing the show, and this is why. So why can't you just lay down like the other dog? And she's looking at me like, I don't know what you have going on or who you're talking to. There's no one there. Welcome to my madness. Yes, come here. Come over here. Perhaps you can say hello. No, we're not doing that. In any case, we have lots of experts on the show. I do remind you on a regular basis, though, even though we have experts on the show, please don't confuse me as being one of them. I'm not. My reason why I'm here, my raison d'etre, as they say, I'm a mom. And my son was diagnosed with autism when he was 2.5. And that was a difficult day for me because I didn't know what to do. And I had to lean into a wind that I was unfamiliar with and trust, ask for help, and ask questions. And I got really lucky. And then as a result of that luck, we worked really hard. No one worked harder than my son. And I can honestly say that now, I can look back and take a deep breath about all that we went through. And I'm going to say this now because it really goes along with the guest that we're going to have. I can say that I'm in gratitude for our journey right now. And for many of you, I know you hear that and you go, what you talking about, Willis? I'm in the trenches right now and I'm having a difficult day and I can't convey what I want to convey, or my child can't convey what they want to convey. And those are hard days. But I will tell you that with the right support, it is very possible for you to get to the gratitude, which is really going to come hand in hand with our guest today. So this is why I'm here. I'm not an expert. I like to say that I've been hosting shows about autism for, almost a decade and a half now. So I've interviewed a lot of people and I might have an informed opinion, maybe, but not an expert. But it doesn't change the fact that I am here because I want to support you and what you're trying to do. Let's talk for just a second about the fact that right now live, you can be writing into our show. If you are on any of those major sites live that we were talking about, all you have to do is type in what you want to ask or what comment that you want to give, and it shows up here on my screen. And in that way, we can be talking directly, potentially even answering your questions live on the show. So, all right, I think we've covered everything that we need to cover. And now, my friends, it is time for the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are those experts talking about? Why are they talking about it? What does this have to do with us? And why can't they just say things in a way that we could all understand, right? We all feel that way. So what we do here on the show, because the jargon can sink your ship faster than anything else, right? Because if you don't know what people are talking about, it's a different language. However, the flip is also, if you can begin to understand the jargon and understand what people mean, you can move faster. And I'm always about, can I save you time? Can I save you money? Can I save you heartache, right? And when you know the jargon terms, it does save you time and it gets you to progress faster. But you can't learn it all overnight. It's not like you just sit down, read the book, and absorb it all. It takes some time. So that's why we give you it one bite at a time. Today's term is a coex. You can see it up there on the screen. And I love good morning to Pantoya. I don't know how you say it, Pantoya, but we're thrilled that you're here. So a coex. I always like to look, can I figure out a root word somewhere or a suffix or something that can help me to know what this might have to do? And this is a good example of that because you can see the word echo in this. And that's going to help us to remember what this means. So let's take a look at our actual definition of a coex and see what it says. And then we're going to make fun of it. And then we're going to move on to the working definition, which hopefully will help us to understand. So echoics is an elementary verbal operant. Well, if only they had said that, right? Involving a response that is evoked by a verbal discriminative stimulus. Thank you. I'm sure that we all know what that means. That has point-to-point correspondence and formal similarity with the response. And ladies and gentlemen, this is why we do jargon of the day, because what in the heck does that mean? And why would anyone try to explain echoics to anyone with these terms? And yet they do. An elementary verbal operant. Because if you don't know what echoics is, I'm sure you know what that means. Okay, so let's take this and let's put it in the circular file, and let's move on to our working definition and see if we can't make sense of it. Echoics is repeating something immediately after it's being said. Or if we think about our root word, it's echoing. So I know that many of you have kiddos who are doing what we call movie talk, where your child just completely is echoing something that they saw in a movie. And I know that some of you are like ready to pull your hair out. It's like so frustrating that you want your child to speak, you want your child to communicate, but then they pick one line from a movie and they say it over and over and over again. Well, that is a very specific thing, and it's in the neighborhood of echoics, but I want to reassure you that that isn't even necessarily a bad thing, because it's a form of communication and it can be channeled to more communication. But echoics is when it's actually a stage of development that people who are acquiring language go through. And when we have a kiddo on the spectrum and we're acquiring language, we want this particular stage. We want to be able to say something and have them echo it. I know sometimes it's heartbreaking if you have a child on the spectrum who isn't speaking, and then later on, they get a little bit older and you're around a 2-year-old who does not have autism, and you see they're magpies and they say everything. And, you're in the grocery store and you hear the little 2-year-old who's in the cart, and mom is on the phone and she's saying, oh, someone is a bleepity bleep bleep. And the child goes, blah, 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 and is attempting to say it, right? They're magpies. We want to take that stage of development and try to recreate it for our kiddos on the spectrum, or teens or adults, when we're trying to build language. So we will teach in a phase where we'll say something and we will reward them attempting to echo it back. However, if you have a kiddo who is stuck in that phase and you're really frustrated, I think it's a great time to sit down and talk with both your ABA team and your speech pathologist and say, I want to look at this in a different way. Why is my child stuck in saying this? That you want to look for the meaning in that phrase for them. I really want to tell you, there's a great documentary about Ron Suskind's son and how he took phrases from Disney movies and they thought it was just this random thing, that it didn't mean anything. And the film, I think it's called A Life Animated, they show you that he was using those phrases to convey much more meaning to his parents, because those were the only phrases he had until he had more. For other kids, it can be different things. It can be different sounds that they like, but we must remember and honor that they are attempting to communicate something. And with the right speech pathologist, with the right ABA professionals, you can take that movie talk and you can stretch it out into other things and have it be a really integral part of their communication. It can actually get very exciting. So if you're frustrated with it, I would say to you, honor your feelings of the frustration, but why is it frustrating? It's frustrating because you don't understand why they're doing it. And if you begin to understand, okay, when he's upset, he says a line from Shrek. Well, if you start to notice that, then you know, okay, now I can continue the conversation, because something happens and your child says the line from Shrek, and you can say, are you feeling anxious right now? Are you feeling frustrated? And start to deal with it. Talk to your speech pathologist, talk to your ABA team, chart when they say what, to begin to try to figure out, what are they trying to tell me when they're saying this? But a coex is a it's a very important verbal operant. Okay, and we answered a question about the vaccine yesterday. I want to reiterate what I said yesterday. Right now, it is February 4th, 2019. There is 2019. COVID-19, 2021 is the year. There is no FDA approved vaccine for children right now. So there's, at this moment in time, we can't even, there's nothing approved right now. We don't have enough information. That's the first place, right? But I encourage you to go and watch what Dr. Grant Pichet said yesterday. And I love, somebody said, yes, so hard to form into functional language, but it is language. It is, but you can do it. Their child says, see you next time. Bye-bye. When he wants a break or avoiding ABA in the morning. You know, that's funny because that's not the first time that somebody has told, because that's what I say at the end of the show. I was someplace at an outdoor autism festival. And a mom came up who I'd never met before. She was like, oh my gosh. And we were hugging. It was before COVID. And her child was in his little stroller. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've heard so much about you. And you know, he was not looking at me and he was not into me. It was a very big festival and there was a lot going on. I'm sure sensory wise, it was very overwhelming. But then the mom said, you know, give your kiddos a hug for me. See you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye for now. And his head shot up and he looked at me and he realized it was me. And then he just grinned ear to ear. And I was like, it was just a favorite moment. So our kids like repetition. All kids do. It's the reason why they used to play the Teletubbies over and over again, just one episode. So repetition is not a bad thing. Don't get scared about them doing the movie talk. It can be shaped. Okay, we got to move on to, because I got a great guest and we can't be late for our guest. I think we already are. Let's move on to our question of the day. Sorry, Traven, I'm all over the map. So we did a coex. That was our jargon of the day. And our question for you today is, what's your favorite song? What's the song that when you hear it, man, it doesn't matter. You can be in any kind of a mood and any kind of a snit, right? Feeling down or whatever, but you hear that song and your body has to move. You have to sing a little bit. I've got several, I have to tell you, but my ABA song, the song that I hear now, and even then, when we were in intensive treatment and I would hear it and I would just have to groove to it, but it makes my heart explode with things to do for and with my child. It's Fatboy Slim, Praise You. And I always say I'm 100% sure that he was not talking about ABA. In fact, I think it was more of a religious thing. But it's that song, I have to praise you like I should. And it's got a lot of, you know, new wavy kind of disco-y stuff part to it that I love. But whenever is it praise you or praise him? What doesn't matter. I groove out to that song and it makes me super happy. And it was my ABA song because that's exactly what we need to do at ABA is praise our kids. If you can do that, if you can get that part of ABA, your life will be better and their life will be better. So I love me some Fatboy Slim. Somebody else says Nappy Roots, Good Day. Okay, I don't know this. I got to listen to this song. Okay. And our guest has said that our sound is choppy for her, Traven. So I don't know, and we're going to get to her in just a second. Hopefully it'll be better when she's in the room. Is anybody else having choppy sound, or are you all able to hear me? Please write into the chat if you are having sound, or it could just be my dog that is scratching that is making it sound choppy and disturbing the video. I'm about to adopt her out. In a minute, I'm going to have to get up and let her out in the middle of the show. Come here, Daisy. I need you to go lay down. Here. Okay. So anyway, Oh, it's like juggling chainsaws today. Okay, so what is your favorite song? Write in and tell me. Somebody says it's a little bit choppy on their end, but somebody else says they can hear it fine, Traven. So I don't know what you want to do with that. But okay, so we always have a topic of the week, and we didn't get to introduce the topic of the week on Monday because we didn't do a show on Monday. So our topic this week was levels of friendship. This is a lesson that we teach our kiddos on the autism spectrum, that all friends are not the same. That you have friends that are acquaintances, and you have friends that are your ride or die, and then you have friends that are good friends, right? But maybe not your best friend. And then there are people that you don't know at all, that you really wouldn't even call acquaintances, but you're aware of them, right? It's a lot. And even within those categories, there's gradations, right? Like you have a friend that you would tell anything to, I hope. And then you have friends that you're like, well, I wouldn't tell her that because she's going to yakety yak, but still your friend, right? But you can have friends that you don't trust completely. It's just that you put them in a certain category. And it's really important that we teach our kiddos the levels of friendship, because we need to make sure that they're with people who don't take advantage of them, don't harm them, and are nice to them. That sometimes our kiddos on the spectrum are so pure, they don't know how to lie, and they don't understand why anybody else would lie. We can teach them what a lie looks like. We can teach them to lie for their own good, but it still confounds them. I have really good friends on the spectrum that are adults who are like, I don't get it. Why do people lie? Like, what's that about? They understand it, but they're like, why would you waste your time to lie? And I got to say, it's one of the things that I love about my friends that are on the autism spectrum. You know what you're getting, right? They're going to tell you the truth, and they're not trying to prevaricate and all these other things. But it makes them vulnerable to people who are up to no good. So we want to teach levels of friendship. And I have to tell you that I think it's really important for us, all of us, to acknowledge that there's levels of friendship and put our friends like on a spectrum of, where do I trust this friend? How much do I trust this friend? It wasn't until my son was being taught this that I was really in a position to think about it. I had never really thought about it in my life before, but there was a kiddo in my son's second grade class that my son, he would tell me, Michael is my friend. I like to play with Michael. I would say to him, what are you doing during lunch today? Did you play with Michael? Yes, Michael and I did this, that, or the other thing. Great. Except that the aide in the classroom would tell me, Michael is not a good influence. And I don't always subscribe to that, because I'm like, well, sometimes kids are misunderstood. But then Michael was taking the little drawstring things to my son's hood, pulling them tight and trying to strangle him with them. And I want to cut Michael a break, and Michael, is his own individual. But when you're trying to strangle my child, I'm like, you can't spend time with my child. So we went through a whole host of things to teach my child, what do you do when a friend is trying to harm you? And we said, first of all, you need to communicate and say, stop. And that if possible, you need to say, stop, you're hurting me. And that if you say, stop, you're hurting me to someone, and they continue doing the thing that they were doing, then they really aren't a friend. And I remember us having to, and the therapists explaining this to my son, and me going, oh, because I had people in my life who I considered friends, good friends, that had, one in particular who had done something, and I had said, please stop, please don't do that. That's, you're hurting me and your family and my family when you do this. And then they persisted in doing it and explaining to me, well, the reason why I'm going to do this, after I had said, please stop. And it was such a moment of clarity for me. And I have to tell you that if you are, whether you are a person on the spectrum and someone is not being nice to you, or whether you're a parent of someone on the spectrum and you're trying really hard to help your child, and there's someone in your family or in your friend category that is making it harder for you to do what you're trying to do, we all need to look at that. And it doesn't mean that we make these people go completely away. It doesn't mean we shun them. It doesn't mean that we think bad thoughts about them. It's just we put them in a different place in the level of friendship. And I know there were some friends that I had to put on pause while we were doing autism intervention and say, you know, you got a lot going on there and I can't participate in that right now. And I'm able to be friends with them again. I would tell you honestly, not the way we were before, but I can be friends. I can wish them well. I'd be at an event with them. I hug them. I wish well for their kids. We can have a phone conversation. We're just not in each other's pockets maybe. But it's important that we model behavior for our kids and show them that if you invest in a friendship and put trust into a friendship, friends don't hurt you. And I think it's a really important conversation to have in the autism community. And that we call it out into light, and that people, you know, we look at people and go, is this somebody who's supporting me, or is this somebody who's trying to tear me down? We need to teach that to the individuals on the spectrum, because they, like I said, they aren't front loaded with this thought that someone who says they care about them would say something or do something harmful. I just don't think it occurs to them. And I'm sorry that we have to introduce the concept into their world, but as we do, I think we need to take that on for ourselves. So many of you will tell me that, you know, you have somebody in your family who thinks that they know what you should be doing about your child. And you know what I always say, if you don't know what an FBA, an IEP, a BIP, you know, and throw a bunch of letters, if you don't know what those things mean forward and backward, then you should let me parent my child on my own. You know what I'm saying? Yes. So, and somebody said, I just had a conversation with my neurotypical 8-year-old regarding gaming friends and school friends. Yes. Because, you know, school friends, you could tell them where you live and invite them over to your house. But gaming friends online, we don't tell them our name. We don't tell them where we live. We don't give them our phone number or address. Someone said, oh, my Lord, yes. Somebody said, I got the I told you so from someone who gave me no help and just demanded the world from me. It happens. I'm sending you all hugs. It happens. And we don't have to be in a place of anger and resentment about it, but we can have big boundaries and say to ourselves, oh, this person is in this level of friendship, which means I just don't invest in that. And it's a better place for our head to be in. So I'm so glad we could have this talk, because it's a lot, right? And you deserve to have people in your life who are building you up. That's the truth. The other thing that I always say, I'm going to get it crocheted onto a pillow. My favorite phrase is, other people's opinion of my parenting is none of my business. None. You know, everybody, like, please, I always say to you guys, feel free to judge me. You know, go for it, because it's none of my business. And that gives me a certain amount of peace of mind, because nobody's here to see the day. And trust me, I'm not winning any awards as a mom, but you know, we're getting it done on a daily basis. And there's love. So that's enough for us. Okay, speaking of getting it done on a daily basis and the fact that there's love, we just love our next guest. I'm so excited that she's here with us for the first time, but I don't think the last time. Naomi Siegel is an amazing social worker, and she's joining us today. She's got an article that she's written that's absolutely beautiful. And I'm going to have her talk a little bit about it. We posted it this morning on Autism Live's. We shared it on Autism Live's Facebook from one of the CARD websites. It's a beautiful article about, I believe the title of it, correct me if I'm wrong, Naomi, when you join us in a second, but I believe the title is Why I'm Grateful for Autism in COVID. Can you imagine? Like, where, I know if you're like, what? Stick around. Let's hear from Naomi. So we're so thrilled that she is here. Naomi, are you there?
I'm
You
here.
got her. Okay, fabulous.
Thank you so much for having me, Shannon. Such an honor.
I'm so thrilled that you're here, and I really want people to go and read this beautiful article that you wrote. But if they haven't read it yet, Naomi, tell us a little bit about you and why you would say something like, why I'm great. Is that the title of it? Why I'm grateful for autism and COVID?
Yeah, so that is the title. And honestly, I never expected to be sitting here with you or to be on this journey or to have a child with autism, let alone get diagnosed in the midst of COVID. So really, I just kind of compiled all of these things and wanted to put it out there and share my story because I think it's important to give a voice to, the actual experience of getting a diagnosis, starting ABA, going through all of these resources, navigating these complex systems in the midst of a global pandemic. So, and I can go more in depth about exactly why it's been such a blessing, but it really truly has, to get this support for my daughter.
Yeah, well, and so let's start with the fact that you're a social worker, that this is your career,
Mhm.
this is what you do. But then as you say, and it says in the article that during this period of time, you experienced what it's like to be on the other side. Is that correct? I don't know if you're getting
Mhm.
my sound.
Yeah, so
So
I'm a social worker. Mhm.
go ahead.
Sorry, the sound isn't great.
So sorry.
So I think I heard your question. So, yeah, so as a social worker, I've been working with other families for over a decade, for close to 15 years, and supporting their children, whether referring them for early intervention services, getting them screened, connecting them with resources in the community, doing all of this type of work for others. So when it came time for myself, I kind of just was able to dive right in and go through the motions. But these systems are super complicated. As all of you listening know, anyone who's tried to apply for Medicaid or different programs for your children, they're extremely difficult to navigate. And I have a master's degree and I still, have trouble navigating these systems.
Well, and a lot of people, I hope you can hear me, Naomi. A lot of people, when COVID hit, if their child was already diagnosed with autism or newly diagnosed with autism, I gotta say, my heart goes out to anybody who's gotten the diagnosis since this started, because I can't even imagine how hard that is. But a lot of people were told or felt that they couldn't start intervention or couldn't continue intervention in COVID because it hasn't been easy and it hasn't been like it was before. You have just forged on, and I'd love it if you could talk a little bit about what it's been like for you doing an intervention during COVID, what's worked, what's been hard, what hasn't worked.
Okay. Yeah. So I talk about this in the article that I wrote, but for years we were having challenges with my daughter, behavioral challenges, throwing tantrums, being inflexible. I mean, the whole 9 yards. And even from a young age, she was hitting all of her milestones really early. So there weren't red flags because she's so brilliant. She was walking at 10 months old, speaking in full paragraphs at 2 years old. I mean, extremely intelligent. But there were these clues, right? There were biting and scratching and kicking teachers and all of these behaviors and, refusing to follow one-step directions and all of these red flags. And so, we were lucky that the preschool she was at referred her to the school district. So she started on an IEP when she was 4 years old. And I had my pediatrician send us a referral to Children's Hospital out here in Colorado. And she was on the wait list for 9 months, but then it turned into a year because of COVID. So she was actually supposed to have her big assessment right in March, and then COVID came. So that got pushed back a few more months. So it was really frustrating, right? So initially we have the shutdown, and it falls on me. I'm working full time. I have 2 kids under the age of 5 at this point, trying to balance everything. And this was before the diagnosis of autism. So I'm just trying to keep my head above water, keep my work on track, entertain my kids, try to do the online school piece, which now I know does not work with children with autism on the spectrum. So just trying to balance everything. It was chaotic, to say the least. So then, once we got this diagnosis, at first I was in disbelief. And I also talk about this. I said, are you sure? Are you sure that my child's on the spectrum? Really? And even, relatives were like, no, she doesn't have autism. That can't be right. And so it was really interesting. And I started doing reading and researching and immediately realized, okay, autism is a disability. So I applied for the Medicaid buy-in program, which many people don't realize because we're over income. We were able to get on a program where there's a monthly premium, which is waived because of COVID. So got her signed up for that, got her into ABA therapy, got her set up with occupational therapy. And, the ball started rolling. I was like, okay, we've got a plan now. And in some ways, it's been a blessing too, because with schools closed, we were able to have the behavioral technicians come to our home to work with my daughter, send her to the center. So I was actually able to get a little bit of a respite, some time to focus on my actual job, because we're trying to balance all these things. It's crazy, right? But really, none of this would have been possible without my employer, working for Boulder County, which is local government out here in Colorado. Having an employer that is not only supportive of the work-life balance, but they offer, it's more the norm for flexible work schedules. They've also expanded FMLA time during COVID because so many people need to be taking care of their kids and working, right? And trying to do it all. It's obviously a feat for the ages, right? To be balancing all of these things with young children in the home. So, and then I also just really need to speak. I have so much privilege. I have a master's degree as a white college educated woman. So many people don't have this. There are so many people who do not have access or the ability. They're working frontline essential employers. They're working at restaurants. They're working cleaning hotels. They don't have the ability to work from home. They don't have an employee who's understanding. So none of this would be possible for me to even be supporting my daughter without this infrastructure in place and the privilege that I have with my education and being a white woman. So I just wanted to put that out there as well.
And, I appreciate that. Somebody wrote in and said, sounds like you were able to adapt a lot faster than most of us in the beginning. And someone else said, yes, how do we apply for Medicaid or SSDI in New Jersey here? And thank you. Mm-hmm. But I want to thank you for acknowledging, what I think is amazing about you, Naomi, is that you acknowledge all of that you sort of had a leg up with all of that privilege. And part of that privilege was that you were already a social worker. This is what you do for a living, is help people access this. I mean, it's amazing. But what I love is that now you're acknowledging that and trying to turn around and help other parents to look at this in a different way. I didn't know about the Medicaid buy-in program until you talked about it. And I'm so excited for other parents to know this. So for this mom in New Jersey who wants to know, how do we apply for Medicaid and SSDI? Obviously, New Jersey and Colorado are going to be different, but do you have any words of advice for her?
Yeah, so I would recommend whatever website you apply for public benefits. So out here in Colorado, there's a website called Colorado Peak, if there's anyone listening in Colorado. But each state has their own website where you'd go to apply for food assistance, Medicaid, temporary assistance for needy families, any of these public benefits. There should be a website where you go and apply. So that would be a good place to start. And then it's important that you're only applying for your child, not for your whole family. And when you are applying, to check that your child is disabled, because you're applying for your child, your specific child who has the autism diagnosis, which is considered a disability. And then there's income guideline limits. I'm not sure if that is different per state. I believe in Colorado, a family of 4 has to be making under $120,000 a year. So like you can use your taxes from the previous year to apply. But it's interesting because this isn't a program that's often advertised. So you kind of have to do some digging.
And one of the things that I discovered earlier in the week, this week, I guess I'd known about it years ago and forgotten it, but every state has a website that's a 211 website. So if you just Google 211 and put in the name of your state, it'll tell you what the name of that state is. I was looking for resources for somebody in Iowa. And in Iowa, it's 211iowa.org, but I didn't know that until I Googled it. But then it's a clearinghouse of places to go for information about everything under the sun. Here in Los Angeles, you can just dial 211 on your phone and you'll be connected to a person who says, what do you need help with? And depending on what you say, they will connect you to resources. It's not comprehensive. I mean, I did that when my son was young. I did the 211 number and they didn't tell me about the IHSS, because they didn't know. So it's not comprehensive. It's not, but it's a place to start. Somebody says we're still going through the IHSS process over 6 months at this point. I don't know what it's like in other states, but here in California, it's often at least a year. And that's when it's not COVID. And I would think that COVID would slow it down. But I just want to say to you, anybody who's applying for IHSS in California, they go back when they approve you, they go back to the day that you applied. So a lot of families get a check that's a year late, that's a sizable, it's a big help. I've seen families put a down payment on a house with what they got from IHSS because they waited a year. It's that much money. So there we go. But Naomi, I'm always struck by the fact that there's always more than one way to look at things. And while a lot of people have said, oh no, my child was diagnosed in COVID, could there be a worse time? You said, well, look, this worked out because school wasn't as intensive. You've seen the glass half full. Do you think that that's because of who you are or because of what you know or what you had access to? Like, what led you to be positive? And was there a day when you were just like, oh no, woe is me, and then it shifted? What was it like for you?
I think it's a journey, right? We're all on this journey that ebbs and flows, and you've got good days and bad days, and oh my gosh, like, how am I going to get through this days? But ultimately, what I do for a living is early intervention, right? I'm connecting families with services so they don't lose their housing, so they don't lose their employment, so they're stable, so they're connected with whatever they need. So I really look at it as, okay, you know what? Here's what we were given. I am going to do what I need to do to get my daughter the best services she can, as quick as she can. And, let's do this. Like, let's go full steam ahead. This is the time. COVID obviously is another layer. I feel like I went from having, my actual full-time job and then my parenting full-time job. Like before COVID, I had maybe 2 full-time jobs, and now I have like 6 full-time jobs. It's really multiplied. So, finding the time to do everything and obviously take care of myself, because if I go down, then my whole family will be in trouble. So, I think part of it is my attitude that, you know what, this is what life's dealt me. And my daughter is brilliant. I look at her in a different way with this diagnosis because I see that she is going to do amazing things. She is so gifted and so talented, and the questions she asks me, the way she sees the world is so incredible and inspiring. And it's hard as hell. Like, let's be honest. There's those times where it's like, oh my gosh, can't we just get your shoes on and get out the door? Does it have to be these simple one-step directions that my 3-year-old is able to do, even though my 6-year-old is the one who, is twice as old, the one with ASD is 6. So.
And you say in your article that one of the things that you've been doing is a pretty intensive ABA program, and that's typically a hard thing to start. But are you like about 6 months in now? Is that correct?
Yeah. So my daughter was diagnosed at the end of July. So it's only been 6 months since we've had the diagnosis, and she's been in ABA probably about 5 months.
That's amazing. And so do you see a change after doing 5 months of ABA?
We are definitely seeing some positive changes. It's like for every few steps forward, there's some steps back, So I'll be like, wow, she actually recognized, this was only a small problem, but my reaction was really big, and it didn't match. So, there'll be these little indicators, or I'll see her just being really kind to a friend, or some growth and maturity. So yeah, I am impressed, and I'm seeing some positive results already.
So
But we
there
have
have
a
been
ways
a
to
lot.
go. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's why it certainly takes more than 6 months. But for families that are out there who have decided to just put things on hold, because a lot of families they've said, I can't do the distance learning, I can't work my job, I can't manage things in COVID and do an intervention. So I'm going to put ABA on hold. What advice would you have for them?
Do whatever you can to try not to put it on hold. I know this is a tall order, and it may not be realistic for those families that are frontline, working in restaurants, don't have the flexibility in their job, but maybe you can drop them off at the center for 8 hours. That's what I do. And it's bliss. Let me tell you, 8 hours, my daughter loves it. I love it. It's a win-win, you know? So look at the flexibility. We also have a therapist come to our house 3 evenings a week. And we struggle during dinner and bath time. So it's lovely having someone there at the hardest part of the night, assisting with those activities. So I really think that it's possible for most people. I'm not going to say it's possible for everyone. But I think, again, making this a priority is going to have such tremendous benefit in the long term.
I love how you look at it. And I'm so glad that we have a chance to have other people share that. Just there's another side to it, that it can be helpful. Mary Jo says, thank you. How does Medicaid work for my son if we have medical insurance through my husband's job?
That's a great question. So I have health insurance through my job, and Medicaid becomes a secondary insurance. So for example, I have Cigna as a primary, right? And so whenever Cigna has a copay, or if Cigna denies a service, or if Cigna costs a lot of money, Medicaid takes it over automatically, and then you have zero copays, zero deductible. For example, genetic testing is not covered under Cigna. I think they do like the first part, but not the in-depth, which we're doing. And so Medicaid will cover that. So Cigna will reject things, and then Medicaid picks it up. And there's never, ever any copays with Medicaid. So it's such a help, right? So even OT, I took my daughter to OT this week. OT didn't happen. She threw a huge tantrum, refused to go in, but I don't have a copay. So that takes a lot of stress off, right? As a parent, as a working mom. Okay, we're going to do the best we can, but she needs these appointments, but it's covered.
Love it. And they said, thank you. They have Cigna too. And she said, that would be awesome. That parent also said that thanks to COVID, her child has learned to tie their shoes. I do think, for all of us, this is, yeah, exactly. Let's celebrate that. I think that I don't think any of us would have chosen COVID. That this has been really hard in a lot of different ways, and people are suffering in a lot of different ways. People have lost family members. This has been really tough. But I do think that people who have looked at it and said, okay, what can I do that's positive during this time? And we could certainly look at it and say, oh, this is a bad time to be diagnosed with autism. But it also, I've seen parents who have sort of doubled down on their ABA and gotten, and you learn how to tie your shoes. There are some good things that we've seen happen as a result of it when people got in that mindset. So I love that you're preaching that to us, because it's a wonderful thing. Somebody said we did deep genetic testing too, but no copays would be awesome. And I would. My son had therapy in a time when there was no insurance for autism. My generation fought really hard for there to be insurance, and I didn't think it was going to happen. I just got to tell you, I didn't think that was going to happen in my lifetime. And when it did, I think those of us who had hoped for it were like, this is amazing. You guys have it all so easy, except that you don't. Because sometimes the copays, I literally have had parents say, we turned down ABA because we couldn't afford the copay. And I don't ever want to hear anybody say that, because there are programs and ways and Medicaid and things that can help you to mitigate that copay cost so that we don't ever have to do that. So somebody wants to know, can you get Medicaid and SSDI or one or the other?
You can get both, depending on the severity and the documentation from the doctor. So SSDI is a complicated process to apply for, and often people do get turned away from it, but it's totally possible you can get both. They're two completely separate programs. So SSDI is a monthly payment that helps for the cost of your child. So it's a direct cash assistance program, where Medicaid is specifically health insurance. So you can get both.
Renee says, because of COVID, my son started to do new things and gain more functional language. His speech therapist was so amused, but he did gain more behavior problems. And I think, you know, that also has been happening in COVID too, where when we change our routine, I don't know about, you know, I'll take a straw poll here. I know I've had more anxiety in COVID. You know, and I think it would be crazy to think that our kids don't as well. And when we have anxiety, that usually leads to behavior because we're trying to ratchet the anxiety down. And sometimes, I guess there are some people who automatically choose good choices. Like I have a friend who's like, I think I'll go for a walk when I'm feeling anxious. I take a walk to the refrigerator. That's how, that's not a good thing, right? But then when I'm aware of it, I can make a different choice. I think it's rational to think that our kids will have more anxiety, that they will make behavior choices, that the first one isn't the best one, but we can also help them to say, you know, you have other choices here. That, you know, when you're feeling this way, we could go for a walk, or we could sing a song, or whatever your kid is into. But I don't think it's odd that our children would also engage in more problem behaviors during this time. Somebody said, "Amen. Let's eat." Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying in COVID to stop that. We put a treadmill. It's just directly to my left here in my living room, and we're trying to encourage ourselves to get on the treadmill. My husband and my son and I, before we were feeling anxious, that it's like a daily insurance policy that we get on the treadmill and we stretch our muscles. And we find that it's easier to self-regulate if we do that, and we're doing it as a family. So, because that my go-to is, let's walk right over to the refrigerator. But I will tell you guys, I've lost 34 pounds in COVID, and my husband has lost almost that much. We love to say that we've lost like at first it was, well, we've lost a kindergartner, and now we've lost a first grader. So it doesn't have to be, we don't have to gain weight in COVID. And if I can do it, I would tell you that you for sure could do it. So, but I look at you, Naomi, and you know, it's daunting to me. I don't know if I could have done what you've accomplished in COVID. But I'm glad that you're telling your story, and you're a beautiful writer. And I want to encourage everybody to go on Autism Live's Facebook right now. We posted the link to the article that Naomi wrote. It is also being featured on Card's social media, on their Instagram and on their Facebook, because it's lovely. And I think it's really a message about what you can accomplish if you have the right information, so that you know what to go look for in terms of access. And since many of us don't know, it's wonderful to learn at your feet, Naomi.
Oh, thank you so much. I just wanted to add one other thing that I forgot to mention, because we were talking about resources and collaborating. And I think another huge piece as parents, as professionals, is the collaboration piece. And so in our situation, the collaboration with the school has been instrumental too in my daughter's success. So they have her on, it's like a modified schedule. So she's able to miss any school needed for ABA. So for example, so she goes in person right now for 3 days a week, and then she's at the center. She's at Card 2 full days a week. So that also has been huge, to partner with the school. And And again, it's part of us, our job as parents is to be an advocate for our children. And we don't have someone, that finds someone that, there's nonprofits in all of our states that provide support with IEPs, but really to be advocating and to be our voice that this is essential, this therapy. Like, school's important and so is ABA. So my daughter needs both. So let's figure out how to work this so she can be getting both, and she can be getting OT as well. And she gets pulled out to meet with the school psychologist to work on friendships, and, and then they're also implementing. So I've sent my daughter to school with the ABA handouts. So the school psychologist, her teacher, they have them on her desk. And so they're able to do a reward system so she can earn things for good behavior. So it's all in alignment with what she's getting at home. And so just that relationship is so crucial. I wanted to add that.
They want to know, did you get that written into her IEP that she would have that flexibility and could go some of the time? Is that actually written into her IEP?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think if it's in writing or if it was just a verbal piece that the school told me, oh, well, no problem, we'll put her on an alternate schedule. So like when it comes to the attendance, that is a good question. I would have to look at her IEP, but it easily could be in her IEP. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Well, either way,
she has flexible seating. She's got flexible. I'm guessing it probably is.
Well, either way, it's amazing that you got that. And I think just knowing that someone else got that empowers parents to go in and say, can we have an alternate schedule? Is that something that you guys do? The worst thing that can happen is they can say no. But sometimes it's knowing what the phrase is to ask for something. Can we have an alternate schedule because she's got this medically necessary treatment that we're going to need to do, and we don't want to miss out on anything. They might be thrilled to do that. I know you're not the only place that the only parent that has said our school has been so great working with us. I don't think it's everybody's story, but I will be honest with you guys. I think that part of it is that schools don't know what to do. They don't know how to help us. So ask and tell them, well,
and communicate.
Yeah. Well, Naomi, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I just really want to thank you. I'm sorry that the sound was not great for you, but the next time you come on, we'll make sure it's better.
Oh, it was great it was fine now. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. You're a wonderful resource, and we're gonna be in touch with you and have you back again.
All right, sounds great. Thanks.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And you guys, we've got 1 minute here. I just want to point out that tomorrow's live show, it's Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh Jackson will be back with me. Also, Vince Redmond, licensed marriage and family therapist, will be here. Plus, we'll do In the News. If you have questions for Vince, Vince was a behavioral therapist for many years and is now a licensed marriage and family therapist. Feel free to write in questions at any point for Vince. You can ask them tomorrow morning, but if there's something specifically you want us to start out with or a specific topic, please let us know. Also want to remind you that we do the show Monday through Friday. We weren't live. We missed a bunch of shows for various and sundry reasons, but we've been live for the last 3 days. 2 days, and then tomorrow. And then we replay our live shows on Saturday on Facebook. There's a marathon of the shows that play again. But again, they're also all available on podcast. And I'm going to stop talking, and then you'll see the message about please like us and share us. But we'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and yourselves one too. Bye-bye for now. Good morning.
Hi, Shannon. Caught me by surprise.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Nancy.
How about that? Your hair looks stunning, madam.
Oh, I just got it cut. Just got it chopped off.
It looks beautiful.
Thank
you have such a good face for that. You look so cute.
Thank you, honey.
You look like a French model.
Oh, you're very sweet.
But thrilled to be here with you, my friend. And we're excited that we're going to be with you guys live for the next hour talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective.
Yes.
I want to let everybody know, Nancy may not even know this. Usually when we go live like this, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Periscope. But we are now live on many additional sites on top of that. So we're welcoming all of you who might be watching now. On the big four, you can write in on any of the platforms, but on the big four, if you write in just in the comment section of YouTube or Periscope or Facebook, it shows up immediately on our screen. Like we're already saying good morning to Amanda, who's watching on Facebook.
Amanda's
good morning.
faithful viewer. Yes.
I love Amanda's blue hearts. She
I
sends
do
us
too.
blue.
They're
I'm
great.
like, oh, Amanda's in the house.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I don't know if that's your trademark, Amanda, but we love it. We recognize it with you now. So you can be writing in and on any of those platforms. For those of you who are watching on Vaughn Live, it takes a little bit longer, but you can still write in your comments and we can still get them. So thrilled that we're here. And by the way, if you're not watching us live, you're watching us in podcast, we want to remind everybody you can watch us in podcast. Any place where you get your podcasts, we are a free download, and we're really proud to be on. Traven is running through the many, many places that we are right now. So it's too many for me to list anymore. But if you find that you go to a podcast place that, and you're like, Shannon, you said you're everywhere, and you go, no, it's not true. We're not there. Please let us know, because we want it to be true, and we'll do what we have to do to make it true. Good morning, Nasser.
Good morning, Nasser.
Yes. So we're excited. We've got great guests that are going to be joining us in just a little while, but today it's time for In the News. And we've got some pretty interesting stories for you guys today. The first one is from the Washington Post. You want to read the title of this one to them, Nancy?
Yes, I'm autistic. I'm hoping I can wear a mask for the rest of my life. Very different than the feelings held by a lot of us.
Yeah, and I would say I think it's very different feeling than what we're hearing from a lot of individuals who are on the autism spectrum. But I think this is a really good read.
It is.
Reading this article to hear this unique perspective and why.
And yeah, part of the reason why this person is happy to have a mask is because she no longer has to hide her expressions that give away that she's autistic.
Yeah.
She can have the mask hide her expressions now.
And I found it really interesting that one of the things that she talked about was that this whole socially distancing and wearing the masks, that it's cut down on like small talk, like the ridiculous sort of things that we all feel pressured to do. It's cut that down, and that makes things easier for her.
Yeah, you know, Shannon, when you're in line, say, to get something and you're close to somebody, you feel kind of a need to strike up a conversation.
Yeah, and for some people, that's exhausting.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
The social distancing has eliminated some of that chit chat.
Yeah. And so that is a big relief to her. But I also think that it's interesting that she says that this has forced those of us who are neurotypical to understand and to deal with the same level of near constant, she says, anxiety about a lot of different things. Like, not, that we're complaining, neurotypicals are complaining right now about how hard it is to be on Zoom because it's so hard to read somebody, that you're not seeing the full picture, that somebody's looking away and you're not sure, are they paying attention? You're not sure what's happening. And she's like, welcome to the world that we live in every day. And I got to say, Nancy, that hadn't occurred to me.
Yeah.
Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
It just like, I was saying to somebody the other day, one of the things that I'm missing, and the many things that I'm missing in COVID, is that I've had more time to hang out with my family, but I haven't had time to hang out in person with friends. And a lot of my friends now are people who are adults on the autism spectrum who kind of school me on a regular basis. Like, I'll say something and Alex Blank will take no hesitation to say to me, Well, Shannon, that was very ableist, what you just said. And while I'm not thrilled to be called out on it, I'm thrilled to learn when my thinking isn't, the thinking that I want. So, and this is the kind of thing that I wouldn't think about, that how we're expressing the frustration with how it is on Zoom is what a lot of people who are on the spectrum feel on a daily basis. Like, I can't figure out what this person is thinking, saying, or feeling because I don't have the code for it.
Right.
Which I just found fascinating. So it's in the Washington Post, something for people to check out. I think it's a good read. You don't have to agree with her.
Right.
But just to understand her perspective on it. And I don't think that her perspective is the same as every single individual on the autism spectrum. We've had folks on the autism spectrum say that the mask thing is a detriment to them because the codes that they were understanding from people, now they can't read their facial expressions, and that, it feels claustrophobic. So I don't think
yes, plus there's a lot of sensory. She points out in the article that there are a lot of people on the spectrum who have an issue with the sensory aspect of wearing masks. And my son is having an issue with that.
Well, I gotta be honest. I mean, I have an issue with that.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, but I think it's to different extremes for different people.
Yeah, different degrees.
And we've seen in the world of ABA that kiddos that we thought could never wear a mask, if we gradually desensitize them to it. And I'm not somebody who is going out a lot, or very much at all.
Right.
But for instance, earlier this week, I had to go out. My husband was having a procedure, and I had to take him, and I had to pick him up, and I had to be out, and I had to be all PPE'd up and, double masked with a shield, and because that's the way I go out. But it was a lot, and I had to be in the mask longer than I normally am. And I found that, like a lot of things, it was hard for me in the beginning, and I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. But then I kind of settled into it, and I sort of regulated to it, and then it was easier. So
we have Nava is watching as well, and she says she gets fainty.
Yeah.
The mask.
And I got to be honest, I felt that in the beginning, Nava. So thrilled to have you here, by the way. I felt that in the beginning. I was like, I think I was hyperventilating a little bit because I was so aware of my breath. They say now that if you're wearing the mask properly, that the mask, you should see it go in and out when you breathe, that tells you that you're wearing the mask properly. But that was sort of freaking me out. And I think I was hyperventilating a little bit, and I got a little bit lightheaded too. And then I got anxious, which then made me lightheaded. But after a while, I kind of settled into it. Yeah, panicky. Yeah, right there with you, Nava. I felt that too. And it made me think about, is this what our kids go through? But I've watched them desensitize kids over the last year, where they only have them wear it for like 10 seconds and then they take it off. And then they have them wear it for 12 seconds and take it off.
Yeah, and sure, basically you can do ABA with this situation if you have a problem, which is, to gradually sensitize them to the mask wearing, which is what we did with Wyatt.
Yes. And, but I do think, like a lot of things, there's a learning curve to it to realize, no, I'm okay. And I think that there are some masks that are better than others, and at helping you to not feel as claustrophobic. Our good friend, Rachel Bird, helped me to know that if you're wearing a K95 mask with the cloth mask over it, it doesn't suffocate you as much. It sort of holds, because a lot of people are like pulling their masks away so that they're not sucking it in. K95 over it creates like a tent. Your mask is still coming in and going out, so you got it on right, but it's not hitting you in the face when you do it. And that's what the studios have been telling people to do, is to wear when they're on set or moving to set, K95, which you can get now. You can order those from anywhere, Amazon or anywhere. And they're built in such a way that they don't smack you in the lips or the nose.
Right. This is a whole new world we're navigating now, isn't it, Shannon?
It really is. And I don't think the masks are going anywhere anytime soon. I think even as we are able to move about the cabin, I think we're going to be in masks for at least another year.
And I think we're going to be doing a lot of virtual experiences, not going back to in-person experiences for a lot of things. So getting used to being on Zoom and not being face-to-face with people is something we're going to have to adjust to as well.
Yeah. I love Nava said I had to keep going to the bathroom when taking the whole crew to the dentist last week. And I appreciate that, but I love that you found that respite, that you could take a break, go to the bathroom, pull your mask out a little bit. I mean, that's you taking care of you. And we all need to be doing that all the time, figuring out what to do and where to do it. And that's safe, going to a place that's a little bit more isolated and hopefully catching your breath, calming yourself down. And but you did it. You powered through it, Mama. You're good. Okay. I really want to hear everybody's opinion on this next story because we covered this a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, we did. But there's been an update on it. Now the movie that Sia, the musician Sia, is in, won 2 Golden Globe nominations on last Wednesday. So that's a new development. And she's had a lot of criticism over her depiction of autism in the film.
Yeah. And we covered this a few weeks ago. There was big controversy. This is a film that she shot many years ago and did not release. I don't know why. But many years ago, she wrote, I think she started with a short story that she wanted to tell. And she has a close friend who has a child on the spectrum that she's very involved in their lives. And she had a story that she wanted to tell. So first she wrote the short story, then she wrote the screenplay. And by that point, she had a working relationship with dancer and actress Maddie Ziegler. And in her mind, as she was writing this screenplay, she never saw anybody else but Maddie Ziegler playing the role. So they shot the film over 3 years ago, and they're just getting around to releasing it. In fact, I think it doesn't really come out for the public to see until next week.
Shannon, what's the name of the film? Do you know? Because I
think it's called Magic.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's called Music. That's what it's called.
Music. Okay.
Music. Excuse me. And but when there was a lot of controversy because people, when they announced that they were going to be releasing it and that Maddie Ziegler was playing the role of a profoundly, a person who's profoundly on the spectrum and has profound challenges, there were a lot of people who were like, why didn't you give an opportunity to people on the spectrum to audition? And they were voicing this on Twitter, as is their right to voice that. And I guess no one in Sia's camp talked to her about how to appropriately respond to that. And she responded, in my opinion, let's be clear, in my opinion, she responded really poorly. She got very defensive and she said some things that I believe she owes people an apology for that.
Yeah, that has been part of the controversy. And then it's even a larger controversy because there are scenes in the film, Shannon, that show restraints being used.
And people have taken issue with that. She, yesterday, after the film was nominated for 2 Golden Globes, did a public apology to the autism community. She apologized for the use of restraints in the film. She put a disclaimer in the film, and in each additional release of it, those scenes will be taken out, she is promising. She basically, in effect, says, I apologize to the community. I thought I had done my research on how to do this, and apparently I didn't do enough research. I listened to the wrong people, and I apologize, and I'm learning, which is great. And I want to commend her for saying that. But I still want to say that her reaction when talking to individuals on the spectrum on Twitter was exactly what we don't need in this world. Yeah. And I hope that I'm not the Sia police at all. I want to go on record as saying I defended her right as an artist to choose who she wanted to cast in which thing, but that, I think we can all agree that you should audition people who are on the spectrum if it's a character on the spectrum. But I believe in the creative right of the director to choose who they would like for the role, who is best for them. I think I stand by that. I know a lot of people in the community don't agree with me there, but I defended Sia on that. I do not defend her on the inappropriate ways that she spoke to people on Twitter. I'm hoping that she's privately apologized to them, but I want to say that it would be great if she publicly apologized and said, this is not the way we behave when someone criticizes, because she took it to personal places that I wasn't right in my opinion.
Well, she has said that the film is a love letter to caregivers and those on the spectrum, that is where she's coming from. So she's, she says the intention was good and pure.
Yes. And one of the things that she started saying when people were, and I agree with her, I think people were attacking her on Twitter. You and I have been attacked before.
Mm-hmm.
And I always try, it's hard. I always try to take a breath and say, what are these folks saying to me? Because I need to hear it. I may not agree, but I need to hear it. Right. That's, and to me, I mean, that's just being a person on this planet. But one of the things she did say was, I'm so sad that people are already dissing my movie and attacking it when you haven't seen it. Can you see it first and then criticize it? And I'm still going to see the film because I want to see what it is that all the controversy is over. And I want to see if it's a love letter to caregivers. But I'm still saying that I think she needs to apologize for her, what she said on Twitter.
Right. And there's a really interesting article from The Guardian by a guy named Clem Barstow that says Sia's film music misrepresents autistic people. It could also do us damage. So that's the contrary point of view if you want to read that. It's a very interesting read as well.
Yeah, there we go. And then our palate cleanse of a story, because I think this is pure genius what the Philadelphia Eagles did in this pandemic. I don't watch a lot of sports. You watch sports though, don't you, Nancy?
Just some. I watch hockey, and Wyatt will watch basketball because he loves LeBron James.
Oh, I love that he loves LeBron James. That's wonderful. But I don't watch, like, I don't, we never have football on. I don't even know from football.
Right.
So, but I did know, because I've seen the news stories, that when they're playing football, they're playing it in front of, just the other teams. There's nobody in the audience, and that they've put these cardboard cutouts in the chairs. I didn't realize that with the Philadelphia Eagles, because that's a huge loss of revenue to the teams, that they don't have people in the seats paying tickets. So what the Philadelphia Eagles did was they, to their fans, they said, would you like to buy one of the cardboard cutouts in the seats? And they had them, like, there's a whole seating place that was caregivers, first responders, and they had pictures of first responders there, and you could buy one of them. So people, what a genius idea. People wanted to support the Eagles and liked the idea of buying a seat for a picture, a cardboard cutout to sit in. It's crazy. Whoever thought of this and said people will pay for this, genius, win an award. People paid for them. And then as a result, they took a large portion of the proceeds from it and donated it to the autism charity that the Philadelphia Eagles supports. $260,000 from this crazy foolishness.
It's amazing. That's a lot of money for any nonprofit to raise. And I think they've now surpassed $1 million in terms of what they've raised. No, 10 million.
Every year,
milestone mark.
We've featured, the Philadelphia Eagles and had people from that organization on the show before on Autism Live talking about the charities that they donate to that in their community, and that the Philadelphia Eagles has really taken autism as one of their core issues that they like to support, and they've really made a difference in their community. But I just thought this was sort of brilliant.
Yeah, it is.
So the Eagles Autism Foundation is $260,000 richer because people, and then after the season was over, now they've made it so that people can drop by and pick up their cardboard cutout. And I don't know what you do with that. You put that on your wall. I don't know. But I just think it's brilliant, and go Eagles, and go Eagles fans who supported that. And that will make a difference for so many families in the Philadelphia area that need support. We're waiting to see, because one of the colleges that Jem applied to is in Philadelphia. So I don't know. I've been in Philadelphia maybe 3 times in my life, but we might be spending more time in Philadelphia next year. I don't know, but what a great place, doing great things. And thank you to the Eagles for being so smart and wise. So, Nancy, we've got, I don't actually know whether we're having 2 guests this morning or just 1, but okay. I know for sure that Jason Weisbrod is here with us from Spectrum Laboratories. I just don't know if his other half is joining us this morning, but we love Jason. Good morning.
Good morning, you guys. How are you? Shannon and Nancy, how are you? Nice.
We're good. Nice to
hear me all right?
Yes. Is Garth going to join us this morning, or do we just
I wrote back. Yeah, he can't. He's teaching, so he can't.
Oh, I didn't see the email. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, we're thrilled that we have you. We love us some Garth. We'll say nice things about him behind his back, but we're thrilled that you're here. You guys are the co-founders of a wonderful organization that we love, Spectrum Laboratory. Don't know, Jason, what is Spectrum Laboratory?
So Spectrum Laboratory, we just celebrated our 5th year. We're in our 6th year now. In December, we had a big 5-year retrospective show for Spectrum Laboratory, celebrating 5 years of film, acting, music, and animation that we've been doing at Spectrum Laboratory over the past 5 years. When we started, we were just going to make some fun films and do some records and make some music videos and things like that with the autistic and neurodivergent community. And as time went on, we just kept expanding and expanding. So now 6 years later, we have 13 different programs, all ranging in different aspects of filmmaking, acting, voice acting, improvisation, comedy. On the music side, we have a band of autistic performers mixed with actual professional touring musicians that play, which you've seen, Shannon, live on stage, and they're amazing. We have recording workshops where you can start, all ages, all abilities, can write a song. If you're 8 years old, was our youngest student. We have students in their 30s. So we have students of all ages, all abilities. So if you want to write a song, if you want to learn how to act, if you want to make a short video on YouTube that you can show your friends, or if you want to practice animation, we teamed up with Danny Bowman over almost 4 years ago now. We've been working with Danny Bowman, and she has her own company, Dannymation, and we kind of collaborate with them and make a bunch of animation. And what's been the most amazing thing within the 5 years is we were wanting to make in-house creative projects with friends, family, all the people we love in the community, and our students. And then what's been happening is as the years have been going on, we've found the need for career training and workplace training. And so many of our students and our artists really want careers in the entertainment industry, whether it's a freelance digital artist or it's appearing as an actor in TV shows. So in that whole educational realm, we've now gone into career preparedness and have been actually pretty successful. We've in all 3 of our departments in film, acting, and music and animation have been able to get some jobs for our students and pay them, and they get paid, and they're actually paid working jobs. And one of them was actually for you.
Sorry. Let me mute my dog.
I love it. Well, I was just saying,
Jason?
one of our jobs was actually with you, Shannon, right?
Oh, its job was with Autism Live.
Yeah.
Yes, my dog is losing her mind right now. Apologize.
That's okay.
But yes, the opening music now when we do the countdown, and you're going to see more Spectrum Laboratory music throughout our show. But right now, when we do the countdown, the minute countdown, that's Spectrum Laboratory music that we contracted with them and artists. I'm going to mute and let you talk about it, Jason.
Okay, yeah, sure. If Garth was here, Garth Herberg, the co-founder, he's the head of our music department. He got a couple of our amazing musicians and composers to do some music for you guys for Autism Live. And Jay Atticus Cowger was one of our students who worked on it. Sean McRae was another one, and Lucas Salusti all ended up working together with Garth and making that music happen for you guys. So that was just one example of some of the work we've done. But we worked with Sesame Street. We've worked with Exceptional Minds a lot. We love them over there. And our animation team is finishing up work on a feature-length documentary that we're doing animation for. And those were all, it's all paid work, paid jobs. It's a lot of freelance work we're doing. And then some of our actors are auditioning constantly. Like we just had a voiceover audition this past week that Kathy McCauley is our head of our voice department. And she's been amazing and helping coach them for voiceover auditions. And so some of our students just had callbacks for a voiceover for Netflix. I got to be hush hush what it is, but it's a Netflix job. And then speaking of Netflix, a couple of our students had recurring roles on Netflix's Atypical. And one of them I believe, was just shooting the other day on set for Atypical. So it's been pretty amazing to see that our little art program that we just started with the one film and music class is now turned into this, this kind of making dreams really come true. That was all our big thing. Our motto was let us be heard. We wanted to, really share the voice of our students' talent with the world. And now it's happening. So let us be heard and, making dreams come true. Was kind of our heart and our goal with starting it. And it's just wonderful to see it.
You've had a lot of success.
What's that?
Tell us about the film Boys Don't Wear Dresses. You've had a lot of success surrounding that project.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, we've had a lot of success, and it's the film, as Jill Hart, who's the mom of Spencer Hart, who Spencer appears in the movie, says it's the little film that keeps on, the little film that just keeps on going. We started Alani Shorin, who is one of my student artists, and I've known Alani for almost 15 years now, which is crazy. Alani's came to me about 3 or 4 years ago wanting to write a short film about what it was like being autistic and gay. And so we kind of set up a mentorship with me and Alani, and we started writing just a scene between a professor and a student, kind of wanting to come out and tell the story about being autistic and gay, the struggles behind it and what it's like. And from that little seed, a couple years later, we have a short film that has gone to 14 film festivals. It's won 4 awards, 2 Audience Choice Awards, a Best Screenplay Award, and the Best LGBTQ+ film at the Paris Film Festival. And the film just kind of went from something we thought we may shoot in class to a full-fledged SAG short film. And we got some celebrity cameos. We got Tom Kenny in the movie, who's the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants. Mm-hmm. We got Alexandra Billings, which we wrote the stepmom character with her in mind, not ever thinking Alexandra Billings, who's from the show Transparent, that's how we both knew her, to play the stepmom. And then our casting director got her, and we were just blown away. We didn't know how that happened, and we're still mind blown. And then Jill Hart again is great friends with Carol Kane, and got Carol Kane, who is like one of my icon legend heroes. I love Carol Kane, Princess Bride and Taxi, and so got her to do the narration for the movie, and it kind of turned into this Cinderella homage, like a modern day coming of age fairy tale for all ages, for anyone with family members to watch with their kids, to kind of have a Cinderella fairy tale story that, but it just so happens that the Cinderella in the story is autistic and transgender. And it's not really like over the top talked about that much in the movie. It's not like we hammer that in. It's just kind of like a fairy tale, but that's just how it is. That's who the protagonist is in it. And we've gotten a lot of love from many in the world for the movie. And I know, Shannon, you've said your love for the movie, which has been awesome. And Yeah.
We talked yesterday, Jason, and I don't know if you know this, Nancy, at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, they have a committee that works just on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I had met with them yesterday. They just wanted ideas from me about ways that CARD could, you know, both internally and externally be more of a thought leader in this area. And we were talking about how important it is to educate our staff and our families about the fact that a higher percentage of individuals will identify as LGBTQ and all the other letters. You know, that there is a higher probability than we see even in the neurotypical community, and that we need to be aware of that and inclusive and languaging things for caregivers and for our staff to have an understanding of that. And I brought up this film and said, you know, what a great way to start the conversation. Because I'm a big fan of the film. I think it's just really lovely and special, and it's short, and everyone should see it, and it's enjoyable. It's not like homework or anything. But I want you to hear this, Jason, because you shared the link, and I shared it with somebody on the committee, and their response after they watched it, they wrote me back and said, OMG, and in quotes, go be who you are, lovely one. And they said, loved this with 3 exclamation points. So I just thought that was a wonderful reaction. That's the kind of reaction somebody watched this film and this is what they felt. So I encourage, you know, we sat and watched it as a family with our son. It's a conversation starter. And I think it's a great way we all need to be looking at this with love and with compassion, and there's humor in it. And I absolutely love Spencer Hart is in it. And, you know, I said this to you yesterday. She just slays me. She is so good. She's so funny.
So sweet.
And really, you know, like, I look at her and she's who we all want to be in the film. She's all of us need to get to.
Yeah, we were saying that to each other. Somebody said to me at one point that Spencer's reaction in the movie is how we all should react when someone tells us that they're gay or transgender or, you know, whatever it is, whatever your path in life, who you are, whenever you tell that to someone, Spencer in the movie is the reaction everybody should have, no matter what it is. Yep. And I think it was, that's awesome, or something like that. I mean, that was pretty much her reaction. And she's like, I'm glad you told me, you know?
Yeah,
it's just that positive, like, thank you for sharing. I support you kind of reaction, which it would be a wonderful world if everybody was like more like Spencer.
It's where we all need to
be in life. So it'd be just kind of, I mean, a lot of the process with Spencer and Brandon in the movie and Liv, and when we was rehearsing, we did a lot of rehearsals, and a lot of the lines that Alani and I wrote, you know, Spencer would come in and kind of say it her own way, and we'd be like, yeah, just do it like that. So we really embraced just like Spencer, who she was, her personality in her part. And I feel that is the way with a lot of the characters in the movie. So pretty much everybody who's in the movie except Alexandra Billings and Tom Kenny are all under the autistic neurodivergent umbrella. And they're all, most of them are students from Spectrum Laboratories. Like every face you see besides just the 2 celebrity cameos are all like within our program or from Spectrum Laboratory. And they're all, and most of them got paid for their work on the movie, which is awesome too. Yeah.
So obviously now everybody wants to see it. Is there any way for people to see it, Jason?
So it just it screened in Canada 2 nights ago at a film festival. So people in Canada, right now, no. If people really want to see the movie and they hear this and they want to watch it, I'm starting to, I have a private link on Vimeo that I'm starting to share with people. So if anybody contacts me personally, and they can contact me through our website, which is speclabs.org, speclabs.org, they can just say, hey, Jason, I really want to see Boys Don't Wear Dresses, and then I'll get back to them and send them the link so they can watch it. There's no place online right now that it's just up. It's not like on YouTube or anything like that. So there's the website. So just contact me. through the website, and I'll show it to anyone who really wants to see it, who wants to contact me that way.
Great.
Because I really want to get it out there and seen to as many people who want to see it as possible. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of people contacting you, you've got classes going on right now that people could be participating in.
Yes, we just started up our spring semester, our 6th year of classes. We have on the website, you can go under the classes tab. We have a bunch of different classes. Because of the pandemic, which was a blessing and a curse, obviously more of a curse, but the blessing for Spec Labs is it forced us into an online platform, which we never would have done if it wasn't for that. And it's actually working really well. We've had great success with the online platform, especially our digital storytelling workshop. We've gotten students outside of Los Angeles from other states around to participate. So if somebody out there just wants an introduction to Spec Labs, doesn't want to do the whole online classes with a bunch of people, you can get a kind of a one-on-one mentorship, and create your own little video, your own storytelling video with a bunch of Spec Labs mentors. That's being offered as an online thing. So anywhere around the world, even if you're international, you could take that class with us, and it's over a 2-week span. So it's just like a taste of Spec Labs to see if you're interested. And then other than that, we have all of our regular classes, all our music classes, all our film classes, our animation and voiceover classes. Actually, voiceover is full, so we can't accept any more people in voiceover. That class is to capacity. But animation still has a couple more spots. That's starting tomorrow. But even if you're interested, we could even let you in the next week or two. If after 3 or 4 weeks, then we probably will cut it. But if anybody's interested in joining in and auditing, seeing a class, checking it out, we let you check out the first class for free if you're interested. And then, check out our website. Spring classes are here, and we'll probably be doing a little summer program, and classes go all year round. So if anybody's interested, just contact us.
Let me ask you this. Does someone need to be on the spectrum or neurodivergent in order to take classes?
No, we don't. We're not funded by any government organization or have any kind of red tape or rules. So we really do we interview every student / parent, whoever kind of comes to us. We kind of do like an introductory meeting, and have them sit in a class and then see if it's a good fit. And it doesn't have to. It has to be like most of our students are somewhere in that neurodivergent autistic realm. But we have students that don't have a diagnosis that are in our classes. So it's really kind of, we do it we've always been very person-centered, like each person, and see if they're a good fit. So we also are trying to open up to more communities, the LGBTQ+ community for one. We're probably going to start up a support group soon that will be free with Alani. I'm hoping that happens. And just trying to open it more to anybody who just loves what we do and wants to be a part of it, and find out in what capacity. As a student, as an artist, somebody who wants to create, as a mentor, as a teacher, as just a volunteer, as a singer who's out there who just wants to write a song with some of our students. Like we really are open to anybody coming in, and just finding good, awesome, amazing, like-minded people who really want to create, some great art, some good content. And that's what we're open to. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I'd love to take a storytelling class. Doesn't that sound like a great deal of fun, Nancy?
Yeah, it does. It really does.
In that workshop, you're learning about music creation. You're learning how to create your own score. You're learning about writing your own little short story. You narrate your own little short story. So you're learning the art of voiceover, how to record at home and how to make it sound professional. You're learning acting, because we film you at home and we try to get you in front of a green screen or whatever kind of background you got at home for filming. And then Spec Labs edits all that together and puts together a little short video. And they're all up on our website too. Like, under Spec Lab Films. It's like what we do. Under Spec Lab Films, it takes you to our YouTube page. And on our YouTube page, under Spectrum Laboratory, we have a digital storytelling workshop section. And you can see a bunch of our students who've gone through that and see their cute little amazing story. I mean, some of them are so funny and awesome, and they're all in 2 weeks, which is pretty great. They're really fun. A lot of them are great.
I mean, I just look at over the years what you guys have done, and I'm in awe of the work that you do. And okay, I can think of like one student that I did not know before he started working with you, but I know what his mother has told me. That this was a young man that she was like, I don't know what's going to happen with him. I don't know where he's going to go in his life. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know where he fits in. I don't know how we're going to get from here, point A, to like, what is he going to do? How is he going to find a passion in his life? I don't see this happening. And I have seen what you have done with this particular young man, and he is so driven and amazing. And he came to you and said he wanted to do a CD, and you guys did CDs with him, and there's a music video. And I just see, when I come to your events, he's excited because he is there selling his CDs. And he gets up on stage and he performs. And I just have seen like him blossom. And when you talk to him and he's like, well, I'm an artist and I have a CD, and he has a place in the world that he understands and is passionate about. And his mother just thinks that the sun rises and sets in you and Garth. And I can completely understand why. But Nancy,
I know who you're talking about. And I also think that we gave that young individual, not so young anymore, his first job ever. And he's still working with us, if I'm thinking of the right individual.
I think you probably know who I'm talking about. And I just don't want to call him out here. Yeah. But I know, like, on the other side, and Nancy, I don't want to make you talk about something you don't want to talk about, but you have a son who's a brilliant artist.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard as a parent to be like, okay, well, what do I do with that?
Right.
Like,
exactly.
I don't know how to break into having an art showing, and I don't know how to market his stuff. And like, it's almost like, you have to become the manager and the agent and the creative muse for your child. And sometimes it's just too much.
Yeah.
But I love that then people can come to you guys and say, I'm not really sure what to do here. And then they have the team of you and Garth, and you guys are two of the most creative people I've ever had the pleasure to be in the room with. And you guys make stuff happen. You become their directors, agents, managers, producers, whatever it takes. It's really special what you do.
Oh, thank you. That really means a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's really because we get so inspired by our students. I mean, it's not like, it's not like every day I wake up, thinking that. It's just when I get into conversations with them and they show me how passionate they are about creating their art and doing these things. It's like something about Garth and I, and why we're such a good pair, is we just kind of like kick into this. We got to make it happen, because we also, I mean, Garth and I are both artists. We don't have any therapeutical background. We don't come from any school. And, we learned about autism through the arts, through art programs. And so we have always been about making the art first. And so we've created so much content because that's what we love to do as artists. But then like the type of content that we've been able to create is like some of the most fun content I've created in my whole life. And I've worked with like A-list celebrities, have been on huge Hollywood sets and, big movies and stuff. And those were miserable experiences most of the time for me, honestly. And so then when we started making these little short films and stuff in classes and green screens and just, making these fun songs, it was like so much more fun than anything I experienced. So that's really what drove us, that drives Garth and I, is our students and their stories. They're so much fun to work with. So, and
again, people can go on your website and they can see some of the examples of work that you do have some stuff that's up on YouTube.
We have a ton of stuff on our YouTube page. If anybody wants to watch ours, just go to Spectrum Laboratories YouTube page and you'll see there's so much content, over 100 videos, I think, on there. Yeah.
Wow.
And when we're not in COVID, you do a yearly, or I think is it yearly or you do the Spec Fest, but you just did a big retrospective.
Yeah, once a year. Yeah.
But I got to tell people, if they're in the LA area, whether you're doing it online or whatever, people should go to it. And one of the ones I went to a couple of years ago, there was a video that you played that I think about all the time. It was a music video, and I don't remember who wrote it, but everybody was camping.
Oh, Cheers. Yeah.
Is that what? And Nancy, I don't know if you've seen this, but it's a lot of the, you know, the people who have been taking classes at Spec Labs for a long time. You guys went out, I'm assuming, into somebody's backyard or the woods or whatever,
Yeah.
but it was all these young people sitting around a campfire, and they were roasting marshmallows, and it's this music video, very well done, and it has movement and things, and like it'll focus on one person, and then they go over and hand a marshmallow to somebody else, and it focuses on them. But what I sat there and wept. Because you could see that these young people were friends and they were working. And isn't that what we all want for our kids? To have friends, a sense of belonging, a purpose, and meaningful work. In that video alone, you got to see that they had all of that. And a community of artists, you know. I mean, when we look at, you know, back in history at, you know, periods of time when, you know, a group of artists got together and just were creative together, and what came out of that. And now we look back and we go, wow, all those people were together, working together. I think that's what you have going on, Jason. I think you have a pod of artists, and that 20 years from now, we're going to look back and go, look, that person, just like we do about Second City from years ago. And we go, oh, before they were on SNL, they were all in Second City together. I think that, you know, 20 years from now, people are going to look back and go, oh, that all sprang from Spec Labs. Yeah.
Oh, that would be a dream come true. Yeah.
But the friendship.
It's the community.
I mean, because that's something we can't get anyplace else.
Yeah, that's our, you know, I can't stress the community enough, and the parents. And I mean, the parents go and hang out. Like before COVID, they were going to Hollywood Bowl together and going to concerts, and parents meeting each other. So not only the students community, but the parents. And yeah, there's so many students who come in, the parents are like, our kid doesn't have any friends, just sits in this, just on the computer all day, plays video games, or just doesn't do anything. And now, you know, they're having slumber parties and friends coming over, and they're going and doing things together with people they've met through Spec Labs. But yeah, that Cheers video is one of my personal faves too. It's on the YouTube page under music videos. Yeah, it's up on there. Cheers is, I love that. And that was a great example. We had a guest artist named Barry Rose, who's a beautiful singer-songwriter, came in and wrote this song with a bunch of our students. And we just made a whole campfire thing and just had them all come over to, that was my old place where I lived, actually, up in the Hollywood Hills, and just made it, went out into the hills and set up some tents and did a little campfire. And yeah, it was such a fun experience, and I love the way the video turned out. Yeah. But yeah, the community, that's what we wanted to show in that video, was really, and we had some parents in the video. Like Willow's there with her mom, Willow Cox is there with her mom, Sarah. They were in the video together eating marshmallows. So it was just a beautiful thing that came together. Yeah.
Yeah. And I sat there during Spec Fest. I was, you know, it was embarrassing because it was like this happy video. And I sat there and was doing the ugly boohoo, you know, Nancy, when you like can't get it together and people start to look and go, what is wrong with you? This was a happy video. And I think I like had to excuse myself and go to the ladies' room and come back and mop down. Cause it just really, and I still think about it all the time, because so many of our viewers and our parents and caregivers, because sometimes it's not mom, sometimes it's grandmom taking care of them, will say, you know, that's when you say to them, what do you really want for your kiddo? That's it. That's
a sense of belonging. Yeah, a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
But also that the self-esteem that comes with, okay, here's another example. I think it was the Halloween party that I went to at Asner Center before we were in COVID. And at one point, sensory-wise, it got too much for me. And I went and sat on one of the couches in the front. And there was a young lady who was sitting there next to me. And I thought she looked familiar, and she thought that I looked familiar. We were trying to figure out where we knew each other from. And then I said, well, you know, I'm Shannon, and I identified myself as being my son's mother. And she was like, wait a second, don't you do that show? And I said, yes. And she said, oh, well, I'm an artist. I'm a performer with Spec Labs. And I went, I know who you are. I saw the video in which you did this. You're wonderful. But that's how she identified herself. I'm an artist. I'm a performer. I perform with Spec Labs. You might have seen, and how lovely to have that, the confidence that she was able to identify herself that way. I just think it's a beautiful thing.
I love when I see some of our artists on Facebook, and underneath what they do, they're like, works at Spectrum Laboratory or artist at Spectrum. I love that. I'm like, that's awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. So if people, again, we want to point out that you have classes that people can come to just one class and that's free to see if they like it.
And
they're online.
Also the digital storytelling workshop, we're going to start offering that pretty soon. So people can sign up and we'll start offering that. That's under classes as well. If you want a more one-on-one mentorship style, or if they're not into a whole group class, but if they want that social community aspect, even though it's online on Zoom. I mean, I've even been able to make an improv class happen online, which I was like, that's never going to happen, but it's amazing. We have so much fun. Like every Friday for an hour and a half, we're just laughing and joking around online. And it's like almost everybody from our program is in there just joking around and saying hi to each other. And, it's so, yeah, classes online at speclabs.org.
But you can also, do a one-on-one experience where you can bring your child and they can talk to you about it and they can say, I don't really know what my child wants to do. Or I know my child has this talent, but I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And you'll take that ball and run with it.
Yeah, wherever they're at, we'll just try to figure out and see what we can do.
And you don't have to be in Los Angeles. Sorry, I keep over talking, but you don't have to be in Los Angeles. We're in COVID. You figured out how to do this online.
Yeah, and I think even after we meet in line, we're still going to, even when we meet in person, we're still going to offer some stuff online, because I think that as we grow, that there's going to be the need for that. And we want to be able to reach out amongst just our LA, community.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. So tell them again where they need to go, Jason.
The best place to go is our website, speclabs.org. In the stream there, I saw you guys posted our YouTube page, which is probably my second favorite place to send people. Also underneath that YouTube page is a beautiful for our 5-year retrospective, there's a student testimonial. And there were a bunch of our students are talking about Spec Labs and showing clips of the work they've done. That's one of my favorite things that's up on there on our YouTube page. But then also all our music videos and short films. So if you watch that and you get inspired and you're like, yes, I'd love to join, whether it's you who wants to join or if it's a parent looking for their kid, then go to our website and contact us through there.
Nancy, I keep over talking you. Did you have a question for Jason?
No, I just think this is such a great way for kids to find out, where their talents lay. Sometimes we don't even know, as you said, and this can be full of discoveries for a lot of our kids.
Oh yeah, a lot of our students start off just being like, I just like listening to music, and we're like, all right, here we go, let's figure it out. Cool, let's go with that.
Yes. And
so you
find
take that germ of an idea and let it blossom, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah. And as we get closer to Autism Awareness Month in April, if people wanted to create a screening of Boys Don't Wear Dresses, like a digital screening for their organization or something, they can also reach out to you. Is that a possibility?
Yes. Yeah. Contact me through the website and let me know that. Also, we have a Boys Don't Wear Dresses Facebook page and an Instagram. So you can look up Boys Don't Wear Dresses on Facebook and Instagram and find us through there, as well as Spectrum Laboratory. On Instagram, we're Spectrum_Laboratory. And on Facebook, it's just facebook.com Spectrum Laboratory, I think. So that's another great way to reach out or just to follow us on social media. But yeah, the website's pretty much the contact form on the website I'll probably get that the quickest, I think.
So we've talked about a lot of different things that you guys do, but now that since I brought up what a talented painter Wyatt is, have you guys ever had an artist who's like a painter, not an animator, that you guys, or is that something that you feel like you maybe you haven't done it before, but is that something that you feel like you'd be excited to take on?
I've always wanted to do painting classes, and we actually did one round, and Liv Brazil, who's in Boys Don't Wear Dresses, who's one of our instructors, kind of ran that because Liv's a painter. And so it's something I've always wanted to do, but I really believe that, I mean, an online painting thing could be cool. I think like in person, it's great because then, you know, it's great to paint around people. I've always found that really fun. But yeah, also with our digital illustration program, a lot of people who are painters or who paint will come into that program. It's our animation team right now, but we're actually gonna, I think next round or very soon, we might start doing digital painting workshops. So trying to do some digital design, digital graphic work. But
I also want you to create a digital show. Can you create a digital showcase for a bunch of artists? Can you do that?
A digital showcase for a bunch of artists?
Yeah, like, because, you know, we used to have art openings and go to art galleries and things like that, but we really can't do that right now in COVID, at least not in Los Angeles. I want somebody to figure out how can you do a digital showing of artwork with so that people can appreciate it, but also so that people can purchase it.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, we have so many artists who are painters and, you know, animators, painters, digital designers, illustrators. So it's like, I kind of want, I mean, our animation program is kind of, we've always called it visual arts, but right now we're just online offering animation, but I want it to grow. I definitely want it to get into more painting and like actual painting and digital design, and then doing some kind of art showcase. We actually have, before we go, this mug I have is actually, it's a Spectrum Laboratory mug called Use Your Imagination. We just started an online merch store, but we're going to be showcasing a bunch of our artists' work to buy on that store. And it's through sevenly.org. And Sevenly is a really great organization. It's like it's like the number 7, but with an LY at the end, but it's spelled out SEVENLY.org. And you can look up Spectrum Laboratory, and we've already started getting some of our artists' work up on there.
Right.
Creating, like, there's a bunch of Boys Don't Wear Dresses, like the poster for Boys Don't Wear Dresses is up on there for sale. So I'm trying to get a bunch of our artists who actually do design work, or if like someone's a painter, getting their painting up on there, and then people could buy the painting.
Because this is exactly what I'd like, because I'd like it to be in conjunction with a site like that where, because I used to have note cards that were all paintings that were done by artists that were on the spectrum. And I could send a thank you note to somebody, and I knew that I was putting my dollars where my head is and my heart is. So I'd like to be able to, for instance, look, because Wyatt has some gorgeous paintings. I'd like to be able
I'd love to see them, Nancy.
Right now I need a tote bag, and I want to have Wyatt's painting on a tote bag, and then I want to have this one on a mug, and I want to have that one on a mouse pad. That's what I want. So
yeah, like this thing is like, those are all of our artists. Like, you recognize some of these faces, you know.
Yes.
Like there's who's right there, Spencer right there, and Willow. And this was a design for that virtual reality Use Your Imagination video that we did with Facebook. We did a virtual reality musical, and so this was a graphic from that. But that, you know, so we're trying to do a bunch of graphics that feature our artists, but also have been created by our artists. So like Danny Bowman created the Boys Don't Wear Dresses poster. So we're trying to get that up on Sevenly, and Sevenly is amazing. So
I look forward to that.
Look on there, and we're going to keep building that, and we're going to do a big thing for Autism Awareness Month. So your digital online kind of store to help a bunch of our artists, because a lot of that money is going to go to scholarshiping the artists themselves. Like, for
I love all of that. We're out of time, unfortunately.
We're out of time.
But we love what you're doing, Jason. It's so amazing. People should go to your website, check out everything that you have going on, and they should participate and support. And they should definitely go to your YouTube channel and look at some of the videos, because they're amazing.
That's so fun.
What's the chicken one? Chicken bone?
Oh, Lucas is Chicken Bone. Yeah, Chicken Bone was one of the first ones we ever did. That one's amazing.
Not to be missed. Not to be missed. All right. Much love to you. Give our love to Garth and all the students.
Nice talking with both of you as usual.
Great talking with you. You're you're inspiring.
Thanks. And I love the work you guys do too. And, you know, I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Okay. Take care, Jason.
All right, take care.
Nancy, I appreciate you being here with me. We're going to be back next Monday. I believe we have Bonnie Yates live on Monday. So fingers crossed. And then a big week next week, including something called Emoticon. It is a program online to help our individuals on the autism spectrum to learn about emotions, facial expressions, emotional regulation, how to read ourselves and other people, and it's kind of like a video game online. So it's a great way to learn about that in COVID. So that's on Thursday. Moda Play it's called. But Nancy, I appreciate you so much. We'll see you next week.
Appreciate you so much, Shannon.
All right, you take care.
Okay.
We'll see you guys on Monday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.